Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, host of Operation GCD, and more importantly, not the vice president. Welcome back for another Fridaze with my co-host, Nick of the Occult Rejects. Nick, how you doing, sir?
What is going on, my man? How are you?
Doing well. Did you enjoy the usual intro here by my old stalker, Buffalo Jared?
Yeah.
His whereabouts remain unknown. What's that?
Said it actually never gets old for me, at least.
I enjoy it. It cracks me up, man. It cracks me up. And again, his whereabouts are unknown, so it's important to know that since the man went on a multi-state murder spree. But looking forward to another Fridaze. I appreciate you joining me here, sir. And we got anything going on Occult Rejects before we introduce our guest? What's you've been dropping a lot of good shows over there. Been getting a lot of good feedback. Vampire stuff. Celeste the Vampire, very nice lady, very much nicer than my previous vampire experience. So she was very nice. And previously my experiences with vampires, not favorable, homicidal vampire cult activity. So nice to meet a kinder vampire, more gentler vampire. That was a really good show, though. I enjoyed that conversation. What else is going on? Elvis stuff. What else is going on?
Yeah, we had that drop. We had did that come out already, or is that coming out? I think
Elvis.
No, the Elvis came out already. I'm thinking of the vampire. Yeah,
no, I don't think so. We just did it live the other day.
Yeah, the audio does drop next week. Yes, and the Mormon Mafia also drops this weekend. If people haven't checked that out, but that is out. That is out already on YouTube. And next week, I think. Unfortunately, I don't think you're actually in any of the shows as of yet that are dropping. We have Sumerian Deities and the Coral Castle dropping next week.
I saw Robbie Marks, fellow Occult Reject Robbie Marks, post a bunch of photographs of his visit to the Coral Castle. That's quite an interesting site.
Yeah. I would actually really love to go there. I plan on going there at some point. For real.
Nice.
Yeah. He would let me know that you can't have camera, you can't record video, but you can take pictures. Like, how do they know if you're using your phone?
How will they know if you use a drone?
No, I'm saying, how do you know if you're using your phone? How will they know if you? That is one thing. I will be totally honest with you. I'm sorry, I'm wasting time before we get to this guy.
You're good, man. You're good.
If I was to send my drone up, and if there is weird shit going on over there, is it going to fuck up my GPS? I have actually thought about that. Will it fuck up my drone if I go to fly it around there?
That's a solid question to ask, at least, right? Especially if you're dealing with a high dollar piece of equipment like that.
Yeah, but
falling out of the sky.
But just in case, I do have 4K recording sunglasses, so I got them beat. Regardless, if I go in, I'm getting video.
Nice. Well, that's some exciting stuff to check out then for sure on the Occult Rejects.
Yeah.
You ready for our guest here, Landon? Greetings, sir.
What is going on?
Fridaze.
Thank you so much, JJ, for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hosted the Daily Dissident podcast where Nick and I have both recently been guests on your show, and I'll have to say, and I believe I stayed a little bit in the pre-show discussions here. I thoroughly enjoyed those conversations, Landon. I think you asked some great questions, and you have, some great insight on some topics and inquisitive nature on some of these subjects, especially for a man of your age, which isn't necessarily always the case to have these great understandings that you do of some of these broader topics of parapolitical nature. So, doing some good stuff over the Daily Dissident. I really enjoyed the one you did with Don Jeffries too. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, JJ, for all the kind words and really just being a good friend, man. I'm happy to meet you guys, you as well, Nick. You guys have both really put some meat on my show, man. We did some numbers with it, and we're reaching people, and trying to change this whole parapolitical landscape. Really, is as I see it, man. That's the goal, at least.
Definitely needs some change.
I'm just super happy to be here, man. I'm super happy to be alive today. Just try to bring some good energy, man. That's the move. So excited for the show.
Absolutely. No, I like your style there, Landon, for sure. I enjoyed the conversation I had with Nick as well. I listened to that one as well.
Oh, yeah, we got into the Order of the Jester, which was a very intriguing topic for me. And I was browsing through different podcasts, and nobody's touching it except for Nick, and there might have been one other person early on that I listened to. I cannot remember the name of the podcast, but Nick, his 3-part series, absolutely amazing. He gets into the weeds. And what was that guy's name, Nick?
Gus Belarakis.
Gus Bellarac is the man.
Yo, did I mention Trump has mentioned his name again recently?
Yes, again.
You did mention that, yeah.
Twice I've heard him now. I'm like, yo, there's got to be something up with this dude.
Now he was the congressman that got thrown out for paying his Jester's bill with some congressional funds.
You know, this is you gotta love it. Like again, if this is, I'm sure this is probably actually somewhat real. It's probably not like part of a script. You gotta love politics and how dirty these motherfuckers will get. His opponent somehow found out this guy has used his donation money to pay the Royal Order of the Jesters, and that will disqualify him. And so he fucking ran it on him.
That's some dirty politics right there.
Yeah. I was like, that's how I'll beat my partner. I'll just get him knocked out.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how they do it in DC. It's the DC way.
DC clown world, man. That's what it is. Literally.
I'm glad you just said that because I was about to share this image with you, Landon. I'm glad you said it was clown world. Because are you familiar with this image? The current clown world we live in?
Oh my gosh. I've seen it. I think so. Who's the guy on the
rumor
right?
of it? That, sir, would be on the left there. The handsome gent, very strapping, elder, AIDS-ridden man on the left is Roy Cohn. Infamous gangster, board of Permandex, associated with the JFK assassination, McCarthy hearings before that with the communists. According to David Berkowitz, a member of the Process Church of the Final Judgment, in a signed memo he did in 1996. And that's his young friend he just made, the young 28-year-old real estate developer Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, very. It's a touching image. Really speaks to the current nature.
Sure it was. Sure, a lot of things got touched. That's Roy's 52nd birthday at Studio 54, which was it was a den of iniquity there, Landon. If you're not familiar with Studio 54, it was the scene of all scenes there in Manhattan, but it was also the scene of all filth there in Manhattan.
Is Giuliani there? That's my real question.
That's a great question. There's a lot of folks there. I'll tell you one folk that was in attendance at that party. Caught all the tabloids by surprise there in New York City. Young, not even a state senator or state congressman at the time. Young Brooklyn Assembly or Bronx Assemblyman Chuck Schumer.
Oh God.
He fits in well with those guys.
Yeah, right. It's the same ilk, right?
For sure, dude. And you could probably even find Berkowitz in the background somewhere hanging around.
Well, that's the rumor. Drew Barrymore might have been there. She liked to hang out there as a 9-year-old. This is the stuff I'm talking about that went on there, right? Drew Barrymore's gone on record saying she got drunk and did coke at Studio 54 as like the age of 9.
What did they produce out of there? Out of 54,
filth and garbage. Like I said, it's a den of iniquity, basically.
No, was it? I mean, is it a radio? Is it a radio broadcast studio or?
Oh, it's a club.
No, yeah, it was a club. So, what it was a ongoing, like kind of what would you call it, an arts project? Because they redesigned it like every day or every week to a new design. So it was an ongoing like performance arts situation. Okay. Again, I like to call it Process Church headquarters, circa 1978, 79 there, where you saw that photo specifically, because Roy Cohn and his business partner, his law partner, who was also part of Abe Beam's staff, the mayor's staff before he became Roy's partner. Abe Beam's son's also listed as a member of the cult, along with another staff member, at least one other staff member. So a lot of activity there, but it seemed like Roy Cohn and gang seemed to really take control of Studio 54 around that. I'm sorry, 76. Around 76 is when Roy started representing those guys. And, Berkowitz claimed they went there and met with Colt, did partied and did cult activities there. And I believe him. I mean, this is it seemed to be in a cult, the cult meeting spot, right? Number of other folks are identified in this cult scene that have been identified there at Studio 54 as well. So seems reasonable to assume that he's telling an accurate tale there.
Now, JJ, real quick, did you ever run across anything with Roy Cohn and Giuliani dropping a body or hiding a body in New York, right?
I'm gonna have to put a pin on that one, sir, because I would like you to first introduce the Daily Dissident, because I don't think we properly gave you the introduction there. So, what do you do with the Daily Dissident there, Landon? How you've been podcasting here for a bit, slightly changed up your game here as you're getting more interested in these kind of conspiracy culture ideas, right?
Right. Yeah, basically we just kind of I break down what Tucker Carlson and the shill Alex Jones won't. So that's kind of the move. You know what I mean? Basically.
I mean, that's a good start. That helps.
I got tired of listening to a lot of fake people, and wanted to try to be as real and authentic as possible, and bring some heat to the table. That's my move. And the Daily Dissident, just like I said, I got tired of talking to my girlfriend about the stuff because she wouldn't listen. So felt like a crazy person. Yeah, you feel like a crazy person, and then you kind of, you branch out and you start emailing people, and that's how I got a hold of you and got a hold of Nick as well, and several other people. Just cold calling emails and just trying to find some people to connect with, and really just tell a story. That's what the Daily Dissident is, and
nice.
Defy the status quo, I guess, would be the that could be my definition. We'll call it that, defying the status quo.
Yo, so what's your thoughts on Alex Jones? Is that a different one? Is that a clone? What the fuck is up with this one that we got?
The new one.
Yeah, he reminds me of fuck, I can't remember the guy from Men in Black.
Yeah, it kind of like it's like a face,
like the D'Onofrio alien situation. What were we talking?
No, it was one of the Men in Black. I can't remember his name. He had a weird fucking name too. I can't believe I forgot it. The way his goatee looks and everything, he looks like an actor that I've seen before.
Interesting.
Dude, this is the
Dollar General. I'll look it up.
This is the Dollar General Alex Jones, man.
Really, I mean, Alex Jones.
Yeah, dude. The new Alex Jones. I'm not on it, man. It's like discounted. It's a bad recreation or rendition of Alex.
Is that real? Is he on Ozempic or is he doing workout stuff?
I've heard of people accuse him of Ozempic, but then some people are like, they were pointing out certain parts of his face saying, I don't think that shit changes from Ozempic.
Dude.
So what, HGH and steroids? What are we talking here? He's
no, they're saying it's not him. I saw people trying to claim it's not him. They're like parts of
it's just not him. He's just a new dude.
Bro,
he's just a dude playing a dude who's playing another dude, is what you're telling me.
JJ, this could be a vampire, Nick. I mean, really, dude.
Let's hope not. We don't need any more of those. What do you thought? What's your thoughts on this situation?
I don't know.
Look at the nose. The nose is very different.
The nose, so that could be done with surgery, right? Or just the angle of that, right?
Easily, yeah. But you could also look at, I don't know. That might be him.
The biggest thing with me is the height. The height seems off.
Right, and those Sandy Hook stuff, just very, close case.
Oh, closed. I think I've always thought he's a. I used to be a big, when I first got into some conspiracy stuff in the 90s as a teenager, I discovered, this dude, well, no, it wasn't the 90s. I guess it was early 2000s. This dude was everywhere. Like, dude, when I first started getting into some like 9/11 stuff, you know what I mean? Really early on, like maybe 2004 or so, or 2005. This dude's on The View talking about 9/11, dude. What are you talking? I'm like, this guy's out of control. It was pretty, like I'm just saying, it just seemed obvious at that time. And then looking back in the 1990s, Bill Cooper is calling dude out on his radio station, I think circa 1997 on his Hour of the Time show, calling Alex Jones a shill for somebody. And there is evidence of that. There's evidence he's worked for Time Warner, used to be employed or is still currently employed within that network. So I don't know if this video still exists. There's a video that used to exist on the interwebs. It's like top 10 comparisons of Alex Jones and Bill Hicks, right? It's weird, right? If they're not the same dude, it's so weird, dude. Alex Jones has accepted comedy awards posthumously, not humorously, but I guess this is calling it humorously, but posthumously for Bill Hicks. I mean, what's that about? They have the same best friend, and and when that dude's on Alex's show on InfoWars, they make jokes about him being Bill Hicks, and they both laugh about it. It's creepy. It's creepy.
The whole situation's creepy, right? I mean,
yeah, Kevin Booth, that's his name. Yep, Kevin Booth.
Okay.
You have it when you have a guy who films.
He was also
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you have somebody who films Bohemian Grove and then 15 years later comes out on your show and says, I don't think anything's going on over there, you can't trust what the fuck he says anymore after that.
I love that campaign that he founded that, right? Because you can go back and find ABC and like CBS mainstream news programs from the early 80s where they're at Bohemian Grove. They're covering Bohemian Grove. But Alex Jones discovers it for like 15 years later, right?
Like, did anybody ever think maybe he had the footage because he was already in there and was allowed in there? In there and had an invitation in there. Like, come on.
He was personal friends with General Albert Stubblebine, the guy who did all that third eye cyborg stuff you see in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yes. Shoot, what was the name? That
Stubblebine,
guy,
I believe, was a member of Bohemian Grove as well. So, I mean, it would make sense that the Jones had some favor in there, right?
Was Aquino a part of it as well?
You know, he fits the mold. That's a great question. I'm not sure if I've ever seen an all-inclusive list. I'd like to know if Robert Anton Wilson was there, because he lived in the town in which Bohemian Grove exists in, but never once talked about Bohemian Grove.
Yeah.
Make
Alex,
that make sense.
I mean, I just can't get over the new look, dude. He's siphoning somebody's
It's wild, right?
Yeah, for sure. He's
it looks
definitely
like Rip Torn. That's what I was trying to say. Rip Torn from Men in Black. That's
Rip Torn. He does kind of have that Rip Torn look, doesn't he?
Yeah.
What's he got?
I'm not buying it.
He doesn't really look healthy. I wouldn't call him looking healthy.
No, and you know the water turning the frogs gay. He definitely not doing Ozempic, man. I could see him doing some blood. But you know,
so the picture on the right is the SH trial. I'm not gonna even.
Oh shoot! I forgot we were on YouTube.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm just sure they get butthurt. I'm certain. I'm quite certain, because I don't know about you. If you recall this, Landon, you may have missed this era of YouTube. Perhaps you saw some of these activities at one point in time. Circa, we'll call it 2014, 2015. YouTube was just replete with a bunch of great videos on the topic that old Bill/Alex here got sued for what is it, $7.2 trillion, whatever they got it up to now. There's so much tomfoolery in the jurisprudence of that case. Like, I was following it the entire time. It was all complete and utter nonsense. But that's him there at the trial, right? And then the dude on the left is him now, right? So, like, yeah, is that even the same dude? You make a good point. You ask a great question there, because what is that? How do you achieve that?
A lot of drugs.
Something, right? Taking something.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not meaning like coke. Yeah, I'm talking about like HGH.
HGH, yeah, some sort of
some trenbolone and some testosterone.
There you go. Some nice horse steroids. Get that in your system. That'll do that for you.
He's a chimera, dude. He's cloned. That dude's cloned. I'm sold. I'm sold. He's cloned.
How'd you know that was horse steroids, JJ? I was kind of surprised you just said
that. Formerly a registered, I'm aware of the bodybuilding community. Yes, sir. I'm formerly a registered personal trainer, and one of my old personal trainer business partners, one point in time, champion natural bodybuilder, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not the IFBB, the NPC or whatever, like natural. They call it natural, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They'll give that to cows and horses to make them bigger without having to feed them more.
What is that? HGH?
No, Trenbolone.
Trenbolone?
Yeah, it's like a pellet gun that they shoot into them. But like, if you don't have to grind up the pellets. You could, if you wanted to buy the pellets legally, you could actually grind them up and turn it into a steroid. But I mean, you can buy also whatever the hormone itself. But yeah, it's used to make cattle and horses bigger. And if humans use it, it's like a poor man's HGH. Yeah, you can either stuff your face and get jacked up, or you can eat nothing and get ripped up and retain most of your muscle.
That's what I'm saying. He's got a lot of muscles, right? He's doing muscle stuff these days. I seen him posting, his shirtless pics.
Jonas even saying Trent is fucking fantastic. It is. I've used it plenty of times in the past.
Now, Trent's not good for your heart, correct? It dries you out.
There's a lot of stuff. No, it doesn't. It doesn't really. It doesn't really aromatize into estrogen, but it really doesn't dry you out either.
What am I thinking of that dries you out?
Winstrol.
Anadrol or Anadrol. What is it?
Winstrol, maybe.
Winstrol. What's Anadrol?
Anadrol doesn't aromatize either into too much estrogen, even though a lot of people think it does. But it won't dry you out. At least it's not supposed to.
I was thinking of Andoril, JJ.
Andoril, yeah, the drone. So before we start stacking together some nice steroid combos for some bodybuilding here, gents, I'd like to play a game. How old do you think this man is?
Alex Jones?
Yeah. Like, what is it like if you were to look at this fella right here? What's the age in which you would presume?
On the right or left?
Yeah, neither one. I think he looks probably younger on the left, so let's go with the left one.
Oh shoot, 53.
Let's say I'm trying to think. How old am I? Say 61.
That's what I was thinking, right? He's got to be north of 60, right? 53 is not a bad guess. Alex Jones is allegedly 51 years old, just turned 51. Now,
Okay.
Bill Hicks would be 64 years of age. And he kind of looked, he didn't look this bad in his late 40s, like around 46 or so. He didn't look this bad, but he looked bad. And I remember looking, this is when I first discovered the whole Bill Hicks thing. I was like, man, he does look like a busted 46-year-old. Is he a 46-year-old or is he a 59-year-old?
I only got 4 more years left, man. That's what I'm going to look like.
Before you look like that, you watch out, dude. I was going to say, because he looked a lot more like a 59-year-old at the time than a 46-year-old. But yeah, he's, again, I think he looks older than 51 here even, but,
What's your opinion, JJ, on the whole comedy scene kind of intersecting with this conspiratainment?
That's a great question, because actually Nick's brought up that topic to me before about the Comedy Store in LA, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Kind of the weird scenes inside the comedy store.
Yes, there's a lot of
kind of like weird scenes inside the canyon type of deal.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of weird stuff circling the comedy. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, the person that made basically every comedian that you know got greenlit by the Mitzi Shore and her husband, Pauly Shore's folks. Now, Pauly Shore currently owns the Comedy Store there in Hollywood. But if from everyone you know, Richard Pryor, Bill Cosby, all of these folks, even back then, they all got greenlit by the Shores. If you didn't get the go-ahead by the Shores, you weren't going to get anything production-wise. If you didn't get that... If you didn't get on the stage of the Comedy Store, you weren't doing anything in Hollywood.
Right, it's gatekeeping almost.
Big time.
And isn't there drugs involved too out of the Comedy Store? Right? Or are they running drugs?
Big time.
Yeah.
Lots
JJ,
of cocaine. Lots of cocaine.
What does that remind you of a little bit there?
Kind of reminds me of a lot of things. Cocaine reminds me of a lot of things. Cocaine
slinging,
Evans is obviously my first thing that comes to mind.
Right, slinging dope out of it, on the side. What about Joe Rogan's
the game? That's the American enterprise.
Rogan's CIA handler, man.
Oh fuck.
Who's that?
I just seen a video the other day of him. He was knacking on Brian Callen about it. Brian Callen's dad being the CIA. He said, "What he say?"
Oh, Callen's dad's an interesting character. Interesting character. Joe Rogan's got a lot of weird friends. I did a show about that a number of years back with William Ramsey, Joe Rogan and his strange friends, or something to that effect. And Callen's one of them.
We actually, it was probably about 2 years ago on the Occult Rejects. I don't think Joe Rogan was in the title of it, but we did cover some stuff from kind of like surrounding him and the people that he works with that Matthew North was covering. We kind of went over that and added some stuff to it, and there's just so much shit surrounding that guy. It's fucking crazy,
dude. JJ
was half of it. Any normal person should be like, why am I even believing what comes out of this guy's mouth?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick.
When he had that episode with no commercials on it, he had somebody on his show that is associated with the Drug Policy Alliance, and they take money from who's that fucking dude that they always blame for everything for devastating
Soros?
Yeah,
George Soros.
Yeah, and he takes money from George Soros.
Klaus Schwab.
He's still on it, right?
The guest that you have on for your first non-commercial, and there was even something to where that guy was even connected to the show. To it was like, well, that's why there was no commercials, because
he's
him on.
He sold.
You talking about Jack Dorsey, when he had Jack Dorsey on and didn't tell anybody that Jack Dorsey owned Stripe, which was the sponsor?
No.
Or whatever service that
Jack Dorsey also was Twitter. No, it wasn't him. Definitely wasn't him.
Well, he forgot to disclose that though when he had Dorsey on. That Dorsey was the sponsor of that show because it was whatever payment service they owned. Dorsey owned, but
what about the time he came out of his mouth and said, "I wanted to support the show, so I bought a Tesla"?
Right, he does a lot of that stuff, right? So So, what are your thoughts then, Landon, on his buddy Brian Callen? Because I like the idea of Brian Callen being some sort of handler for him, because that makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, dude. I mean, you think about it, look at Brian in the podcast space. I mean, especially with, The Fighter and the Kid. I used to listen to it a lot. And then he done a few shows with Sam as well. So he's kind of, stretching those tentacles out. You know what I mean? Kind of tugging on some strings. I don't know for sure. It just, it's very odd that none of these guys' dad is a he's a plumber or you know, he works at he's a manager of Walmart. No, his dad's Secretary of State, Department of Defense, Major General. You know what I mean? It's just all these military connections just keep coming back.
If you were to,
so that's where I'm.
But yeah, and like not everyone's dad's the member of the Council on Foreign Relations, like Callan's dad, who's related to all this globalist business, right?
Like, even some of these people that they hang around with, they're like supposedly stupid and comedians. If you were to actually look up and see where they went to school and what college they went to, they're not fucking dumb at all.
Yeah, dude, Earl Skakel, he's a Kennedy.
Real fucking good.
He's a Kennedy. I believe it's his uncle that's in prison for the murder of Martha Moxley, thanks to Mark Furman. White nationalist, Nazi, and felon perjurer Mark Furman himself. Y'all familiar with that murder?
Who was it? Mark Furman?
Martha Moxley?
No, I am not.
Yeah, one of the Kennedys, a fellow by the name of Michael Skakel, is in prison for that. I don't know. I actually don't think he did it. It was a murder on Halloween. It was, I believe, it was a ritualistic human sacrifice, in my opinion. But depend on the neighbor who happened to be a Kennedy, and he is a creepy son of a bitch. But you know, like I said, he's a Kennedy. So it kind of goes without saying. I don't have to repeat that he's creepy. He's a Kennedy. But nonetheless, yeah, Furman allegedly, when he left LAPD, when he got fired and / retired in '95, he went and solved that case apparently. But it's Michael Skakel's nephew, I believe, is the comedian Earl Skakel. That's kind of odd, right? You got some Kennedy action there.
Yeah. Speaking of the Kennedys, look at Tim Dillon and RFK. They're best friends.
They love each other. They love each other a little bit, you know, love, if you ask me.
I mean, you seen he shushed Rogan. Rogan shushed him the other day talking about Jared Leto's house that he bought that mansion up there. The production studio.
It's fucking awesome.
Okay, that is funny.
I was trying to say names without saying names here, but yeah. Some people think there could be names.
No, I mean it is weird. This weird scenes inside the Comedy Store, you know, kind of idea, like you're saying there with this military. Everyone's dad's, no one's dad's a plumber, no, you know, et cetera, et cetera. There's exceptions to the rule, but much like the Laurel Canyon scene of Rock and Roll, as written by about David McGowan and Weird Scenes Inside Laurel Canyon. For sure. I'm a huge McGowan fan. That's really they oftentimes joke that Dave McGowan radicalized me. It was definitely Dave McGowan's fault.
Yep. Me too, bro. The Boston bombing. That was go read it.
I quite honestly, I couldn't get enough of the dude's work, from the Moon stuff to Lincoln to, you know, to his Boston bombing series. That's phenomenal. I highly recommend that. If anyone wants to understand the Boston bombing, got to check that out.
Breaks it down from a fundamental standpoint. You ever seen that dude? Kit
Pictures
Murphy.
Pictures and everything.
Did you ever see
why those pictures were posted on the interwebs is a different story altogether. That's probably a separate conversation. I think it was an counter-op situation, because those photos were just published on like a Tumblr account or something like that randomly.
The two boys, their dad was CIA. He was working with the CIA. You
are correct, sir. So the Tsarnaev brothers, Tamerlan and
Narsip.
Well, Joker, whatever they want to call the guy. Yeah. So Tamerlan's married to one of the descendants from the guy who started Skull and Bones, the Russell fella, Charles Taze Russell, I believe was his name.
Okay.
Right? No, that's the Jehovah's Witness Russell. Whatever Huntington Russell, the Huntington Russell fellow that started Skull and Bones. She's a descendant of that guy. Her father was a very wealthy doctor in Rhode Island. That's where she was hiding out in the immediate aftermath of that. And you're right, their paternal uncle, the Tsarnaev brothers' paternal uncle, was married to the daughter of one of the chief of operations for the CIA, and he was big in the CIA. Their uncle.
You can't question it, man. That's the status quo, right? Nobody even talks about some bombing anymore, and it was pretty.
Yeah, and again, why those photos were up, who knows? But Dave McGowan did a great job with that comparison. But yeah, taking that, that's why I took the mold of his weird scenes inside Laurel Canyon stuff, and I heard him on an interview one time years ago saying, you know, someone asked him, well, what's going on with the grunge scene or this scene, and why don't you apply kind of these same concepts, and you know, that you've identified to these salient characteristics you've identified, apply that to these other scenes, these other countercultural scenes. And he's like, you know, McGowan replied something to the effect of, you know, those weren't his music scenes. The 60s, that was his music scene that he was a big fan of. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because grunge was really. I mean, I enjoyed the '60s music scene. I was familiar with it, but grunge was my music scene. That's what I love and what I grew up on. So, huge Pearl Jam head from, I don't think that's the name of their fan club, but huge Pearl Jam head since, I discovered that circa 1993 or so. So, it was, big part. I traveled to great distances to see Pearl Jam live and whatnot, and across an adventure that I probably could have gotten in a lot of trouble for if I didn't get back to nuclear security detail on time, which I barely made it, but we're good there. So, big Pearl Jam head. So I was, kind of shocked to even consider that, but I applied the concepts that McGowan identified and the characteristics from his story, and it's the same fucking thing. It includes some of the same people. For example, you got the Turks, or the Hollywood actors component of that, right? You got the Turks. I'm sorry, the Young Turks.
The Young Turks.
Right, Bruce Dern, Beatty, Jack Nicholson, Sharon Tate, I guess falls in that to a certain degree. I can't remember all the actresses now. Jane Fonda, Peter Fonda's in there. Anyhow, you have some of those, the kids of those Young Turks acting in films promoting the grunge scene, like Bridget Fonda. She's the star of Singles, which was the Hollywood thing promoting the grunge scene. Like, that was the Hollywood production promoting the grunge scene. In fact, Pearl Jam plays a band of actor Matt, the star of the film, Matt Dillon's band is played by Pearl Jam in the film.
Matt Damon does.
I'm sorry, Matt Dillon. My mistake. Matt Dillon's the star of the film. He's a grunge rock lead singer in the film, but his band is played by Pearl Jam. So I mean, it's the machination of both the scenes there, much like we see in that Laurel Canyon scene. So I think it is interesting to consider these comedian scenes, right? As far as why would that be any different? The actors, the music, right? Why would the comedians be any different in Hollywood, right?
Well, they're so counterculture, right? I mean, Nick can probably agree on this too. I mean, they're just so
they establish it, right?
They're against the establishment, man, just so hard. You know what I mean? But they won't mention Dave McGowan's name, Joe Rogan. He doesn't like to talk about the name. So I mean, he never
has
say it.
Yeah,
he won't say it. So
that's weird.
Joe Rogan sold his horrible brain shit to fucking P. Pfizer. That guy doesn't give a flying fuck about anybody.
No, I think it was Unilever, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry, Unilever. Yeah.
On it. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say before. Did you realize he sold that shit?
Yo, they knew that shit didn't work too. They're getting sued for it now. They knew that shit did nothing, and they still sold it.
According to lawsuits, yeah, that's what it says. Yeah.
Proprietary blends, Nick. They're
proprietary.
Are you shocked by Scientologists peddling some snake oil supplements?
Think about how many of these motherfuckers all have some shit to sell you like that. Alex Jones does. He does. Even X22, that fucking propaganda artist, he's got some green crap to throw in your fucking water and drink.
Is that they trust?
Why are all these people that honestly I don't trust all guys to drink? That's a little nerve-wracking. Why do they all got something for you to take and drink and put in your body?
Right.
All these Mormons and Scientologists love supplements, right?
Dude, Nick's right. I mean, who knows what they're putting in this crap, bro? Cyanide. They got cyanide in your damn vitamin water you're drinking.
No one's checking it. That's a good point. There's no regulation.
That's why we get more soy boys.
Dude, I mean,
you never know, man. You never know.
Well, I just think it's crazy that all those guys were connected, like you were saying, especially with, Joe Rogan. He was like best friends with Jared Leto. Like you're not allowed to talk about Jared Leto like that. I think Eddie Bravo even mentioned it before about, that house. What was it? It was a propaganda studio, right? In Hollywood.
Laurel Canyon Air Force Base, I think was the name of it. It's called Lookout Mountain Studios, but I think the Air Force Base was called Laurel Canyon. No, the Air Force Base was named something different, but yeah, Lookout Mountain is the common name. Maybe it was Lookout Mountain Air Force Base.
Very sketchy, to say the least. And
Jared Leto's been owning that for the last couple of years, huh?
Little creep. That's what that dude is. I'll pop him right in the nose.
Yeah. You familiar with the cult that he's established?
I know he had like a Chris D'Elia cult kind of. And then, right. Chris D'Elia had one too.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit more aggressive than D'Elia. I mean, you're right with D'Elia. He was definitely doing some weird cult stuff, but I think Leto's is a little bit more aggressive.
Did he get charged with anything, or there was like some serious
He should be. Let's
accusations?
charge him for being a terrible actor. How about that? Let's start there.
Terrible face.
He
The
thinks
dude
he's
looks
so
like a
good.
vampire.
Like, dude, he thinks he's so good. Like in that Suicide Squad movie, he never broke character as the Joker. Right? They wanted to throw him off the movie during the filming. They definitely didn't invite him back for the sequel as the Joker. Wasn't happening. So this is him as a cult leader. He likes to dress up as what I guess he envisions Jesus looked like. Lead his followers around in white. It's fun. This fun stuff.
And this is in his free time, JJ. This is what this guy. He's a
what he likes to do.
Normal dude. His dad's a plumber. I bet.
Super normal dude. That's a good question. I don't know his background, but that's a good question. Did you know that when you're talking about where folks come from and their dads in Hollywood and stuff, they're not being plumbers? This guy was kind of a plumber. He did the wet work at least. Woody Harrelson's dad.
Yeah,
you familiar with that dude?
Yeah, he's tied in with the JFK assassination, right?
Allegedly, but what he's on record for is murdering the only sitting federal judge in American history at the time.
Is this? Are you getting into the? What was it? I think you emailed me or you're talking about this. Was this tied in with the Kentucky? Was that the Kentucky conspiracy or the Bluegrass?
It's absolutely tied in with all that stuff. Absolutely with the drug trafficking with the Shocker brothers. But what I was getting at here, though, sir, is did you know that he's also the father of Matthew McConaughey?
Yes, I did know that. Yes.
Yeah. How wild is that? Does that explain why? Like, again, I have a lot of questions when all of a sudden all these, some of these people have the same dads. Like, wait a second, you guys are stars. You mean,
right.
How long you known this? And, McConaughey's mother's like, yeah, I mean, she's even confirmed it. And I'm like, wait a second, how long have they known this? Are they just now releasing this information? Like, oh, we just found out, shocker.
Right. It's just kind of, it's very suspicious to say the least. Right?
Yeah, we didn't even know each other. That's the usual claim I like to joke. These people all make, we don't even know each other. And like, they could have made that claim for years. Meanwhile, they're behind the scenes just having like Christmas dinner together. Who knows? I'm not,
Bruce Buffer and his brother also found out later in life that they were brothers.
Get out of town. They look just like each other. Come on. They sound just like each other. The boxing announcer.
Yeah, but they didn't find out until they were like 25 or 26.
That's wild.
Later.
Did they know each other before that?
No. They did not know they were brothers, at least. I don't know if they knew each other. I would assume so, but maybe not, because what's Bruce's brother's name again?
Maybe Phil. I'm not sure. I know you're talking about Steve. Maybe I'm not sure.
Bruce no, he announces boxing.
Yeah, I know they're boxers and stuff. How about let's go with
Michael Buffer.
Wikipedia not Michael Buffer. How about that?
Yeah,
Bruce and Michael.
And there's another example. You know what I mean?
Sure. Are you familiar with this character? Stand by 1 second. Named Ezra Miller. He was the star of the DC Comics film, Warner Brothers DC Comics film, The Flash.
No.
Does that sound familiar to you, this character?
No.
How about you, Nick? You familiar with this guy?
I've seen him. Whatever this is.
They almost shit-canned The Flash. I mean, they should have. It's a terrible movie. They almost shit-canned The Flash because after filming, before release of the film, this dude was into so much hood rat shit. He was running a cult out of Vermont, out of southern Vermont, nowhere near the Zizians, but I would be interested to know that the intersection because he's also trans, much like the Zizian death cult. He's running his cult down by Bennington, doing a lot of weird stuff down there. And he attends somehow gets intertwined with just some locals down in Springfield, Mass, just about an hour south of there, maybe hour and a half, if that. Goes to some like neighborhood family game night with a bunch of families in the neighborhood. And everyone's excited to have this actor there, I guess, right? And then he starts molesting someone's 13-year-old daughter in front of her parents and then pulls a knife on him and threatens to kill him, according to the court record. And the charges that were initially filed and I think then just disappeared later, right? Like Warner Brothers was probably paying some folks off for that one. But this dude was in doing some wild stuff and again started some weird unlawful growing operation sex cult in Vermont.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, I just think there's something to be said with all these actors that play in these comic book movies, right? Like I contest that it's they're all Thelemites. They fall within this thelemic thelemic fan fiction idea of Marvel Comics and DC Comics, right?
I have wondered about comics and the thelemic comics and movies and and comics itself and the thelemic influence.
Yeah, and I don't know how I don't know how direct it is. When I say I don't know how direct it is, so like, are you familiar with the story? What is it? 50 Shades of Grey. That nonsense.
Yes.
Remember that?
I thought Marvel somehow was actually goes back to like being influenced by Jack Parsons. I don't know why. I have some idea.
Well, because he was friends with all these people. They were all part of the L. Ron Hubbard Sci-Fi Club, the Pulp Fiction writers that comprise the early elements of Marvel Comics and whatnot. And again, I would argue that it's named after Jack Parsons, and he's Marvel Whiteside Parsons. His nickname was Jack, right? So, but
was Hubbard a part of the process?
Well, he started. Well, I mean, the process came out of Scientology, so he was essentially running it. If you ask me,
it might have been the godfather of the process.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. He's the criminal overlord, right?
Yeah.
So, 50 Shades of what I mean by thelemic fan fiction, Nick, is 50 Shades of Grey started out as Twilight fan fiction. There was a blog that was started out as it was a Twilight fan fiction blog for the film series Twilight with all the vampires and whatnot, and that evolved into this 50 Shades. I didn't follow the blog or the evolution of it. I'm just giving you the backstory of it became 50 Shades of Grey. So I'm in a similar kind of context. This is how Marvel and DC Comics came about as thelemic fan fiction. If you ask me, you got the superpowers, you got the galactic overlords, right? They got Xenu. Marvel's got Thanos. Same difference amongst other galactic overlords, right? All these actors you see are all into this weird cult stuff. You see it Ezra Miller, right? You see it Jared Leto, right? You see it Wesley Snipes. Landon, are you familiar with his cult?
Wesley Snipes cult. JD, I'll be honest with you, brother. I have no clue about really much of movies other than a few. Like, I'm not too in tune with the whole actor scene. Like, I know you do the breakdowns, right, on every week.
Sure.
Yeah,
I do. I do like films that tells a lot of stories. If you ask me, are you familiar with Blade?
I'm not. A little early in my time.
So it was a vampire film. It was a big hit in the late 90s, like 98, circa 98, I think it was. And what's interesting is he made 2 sequels, I believe, as well. There was a trilogy, I believe. He produced it with his own production company, Snipes did. And he was using that money. That same production company owned land and the security force for a large cult compound in Georgia, a 400-acre cult compound in Georgia, and they owned the training facility across the street because they were the security force for that cult compound, for that cult. Snipes was identified as one of the New Wabian Nation millionaires by the PR rep. The New Wabian Nation being, so he was financing this cult. The cult leader is now sitting in the Florida Supermax prison in Colorado in that mountain for a couple hundred years for diddling and sex trafficking children. So that's what Wesley Snipes said. If you went and saw Blade at a theater, maybe rented it or something, maybe even downloaded it, you technically, myself included, have, contributed to child sex trafficking and funding a cult.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is I don't know if this is true or not. I mean, I guess it really doesn't even matter anyway. I just always thought it interesting. When I was in the feds, there was people that
when I was in this cult, when I was in Wesley Snipes' cult.
When I was in the feds, there was people there that said that they had seen him and done, because you get transferred, and I was at a low. So, I mean, you could be in for 20, 30 years and be at a medium or a high and get transferred to somebody else just because it's a low and you're going down in classification. They said that they were locked up with him. They said he was a complete fucking dirtbag.
Not shocked.
He was one of the dirtiest motherfuckers they ever seen, actually. They said they were so blown away. They were like, I never would have known he was such a dirtbag, they said.
Wow.
Yeah,
because he was in there for tax evasion, right?
Yeah, it's federal.
Yeah. Well, they got him for the tax evasion when they got Dwight York, the creator of all hip-hop music, right? Kind of, right? He's the godfather of hip-hop, right?
Yo, there was a lot of people.
Right, Dwight York?
I don't know if they were directly into him, but I could tell you, especially the Muslims, if they thought of anything like outside their religion, they were very much into like his universe of conspiracies and ways of thinking. That I did.
Yeah, but he started hip hop with Africa Bambaataa.
Oh yeah. No, but I was sorry. I was just saying in prison there was a lot of people who were in. You're
talking about prison. My bad.
Yeah.
I was talking about rap and hip hop. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you visited the site where Landon Nick got some good footage of this cult's operation out of New York City, which is again the cult leader Dwight York, who's in the Florida Supermax. He kind of created hip hop. He's, venerated to this day by folks like Jay-Z and many other folks. But Jay-Z filmed his first video there, his first music video, the place where
in
Nick
Ocean City.
No, it was in Brooklyn. The place, I can't remember the guy. It wasn't Jay-Z technically his video, but it was the first time he was in a music video. He was with somebody else. Forgot the dude's name. He was on the guy's song and he was in the music video, and there's parts of it where it was actually filmed inside the place that I filmed outside of.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, the guy was even the guy ran out at me at some point. At first, when I got there, I filmed with my camera and I put it on a tripod and everything. I was like, fuck, I'm out in the street. I'm on the curb. Like, you can't do anything. I'm even across the street. I'm not even on like their side because I wanted a better view and I could zoom in. So I was like, I'll at least do it across the street. I did that, fine, put the stuff in my car, and then I send up my drone and this fucking dude comes out with his like phone up. Recording.
Going in hot.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, well, where's this live streaming to? And whatever. And then eventually he's asking me, like, what are you doing? I said, well, look at the architecture. I find it kind of interesting. And I showed him my tattoos and I said, I'm an occultist.
It's pretty interesting, right?
I said, I'm very interested in the art that's on your building. I'm not telling him why I'm interested, but I'm being honest. I'm very interested in your shit. I'm an occultist and I think this is some interesting stuff. After that, the guy was just like, I can't. Wu-Tang goes there and hangs out sometimes. He was telling me that Jay-Z, he was listing all these people like bragging, and I'm like, oh, this is. I mentioned it on the show. I don't remember everybody now that came out of his mouth, but I was like, oh, this is great. You're giving me like ammo for my podcast. And like I started looking some of this stuff up, and like some of them all did admit to have ties to even that shit. So I was like, this guy gave me solid leads, actually, bragging. Because he was so like he was trying to brag about the place, telling me to actually come back. If I came back on a Sunday, they'd let me inside and I could visit and see what they're about. They do that.
Were they a part of the Black Israelites?
Offshoot.
Yeah, okay. All that
kind
stuff.
Of an offshoot.
Like an offshoot of like 5% is doing a sense.
Yeah, it's a mash together of a couple of those offshoots. This was their 400-acre Georgia compound that Snipes helped fund. I like this comment here from Troublemaker Jonah. Give me George Clinton, not the corrupt first governor of New York. You mean the Society of Cincinnati member? George Clinton, the governor of New York? George Clinton, the rapper, though, hip-hop guy, definitely friends with Dwight York and definitely a member of the Process Church of the Final Judgment by Clinton's own admission. So, not the governor, again, the rapper, the hip-hop guy. P-Funk.
Yeah, there was a I can't remember the guy's name that Jay-Z was in. It showed a bunch of people from this place like out in the street and stuff. And fuck, I forgot.
That's Georgia, Landon. That's not Egypt.
I'm looking for the Godstones.
Okay.
They probably they hid them under the pyramids. Actually, there's probably a power processor under the pyramids too, right?
I had said that joking around. I said, imagine these motherfuckers had some sort of like kind of mimicking that, and that's how they're powering the compound.
I swear, dude, that's like the biggest.
That's a good point, though, because these people had to use a lot of power, right?
Because I'm going to be totally honest with you, like if those things were, if you were to make mass structures, Leon even said this. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Cloud busting is easy as shit if somebody was actually to look into what you have to do. If what's under those pyramids is anything like, it looks just like what cloud busting, tell you the truth, that the pipes and the wire around it. He said, if you built that as a cloud buster or that type of device, he said you would power like fucking an enormous size area. He said it'd be ridiculous how much power you would generate from that. So think of something on a small scale. You could possibly pull that off.
What do you guys think about that?
There is this theory real quick that Dwight York was framed by Jay-Z, right? Nick, wasn't that?
I
thought that was a theory that was out there.
I don't know. I can't. You'd have to. I hate for people. People listening. I mean, you should just go back and listen to it anyway.
Yeah, I would say just go back and check it out. Yeah, we did a couple shows on this, 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, in the first 1 or 2, we get into this, and there was someone specific that was writing to a magazine in jail, and it was somebody, I think Prodigy, that was in it. And he said that. Well, first off, he thinks that it was fucked up. But he says, from what he knows or what he thinks, from what he's heard too, that Jay-Z and Dwight York's son actually set him up to get him busted so take it over.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Do you think it's a psyop?
Well, I think it's power. They're just usurping power within this cult structure, right? So they're happy to sell out
the power rods that they found under the
Giza yes. You read my mind, sir. Yes. I want to shit on your parade there about it. I don't buy any of that nonsense.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm just thinking out loud here. They can find out that there's power plants under the Giza pyramids allegedly, but why can nobody tell me who built them? I mean, if you can figure that out, tell me who built them. Ultimate wise man, whoever found this out. You know what I mean? It's just circulating through several different a couple of the conspiracy shows I listen to.
Oh, dude, it's spread like wildfire, right?
If you were to look into how the Coral Castle was built, even the guy who built that himself, he didn't give away all his secrets, but he does show and does get into how he actually created that. And humans, in my opinion, could still have built the pyramids.
I mean, it's very likely.
Especially large, if you're even starting to use that type of technology. I mean, just from the guy was saying, I think from certain frequencies, you can actually put it this way. When you make a sound right before the glass, like if you were to make a sound and make a cup shatter, there is a specific frequency that right before it shatters, this stuff turns into a gel, and you can literally mold it for a split second before it shatters. What if you were able to harness that and direct that frequency towards stuff? Be able to move anything the fuck around.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's anything associated with weird pyramidal shapes and structures and power has something to do with Tesla technology. Like this,
you think the Adena giants built them, JJ? You think they were some large sons of Canaan?
I think you're onto something there, because I think there was the way these mounds were built, the structures in which the shapes are built on. I think they're harnessing energy in that funnel structure, right? That cone structure.
Yeah, I don't think like any of that stuff is like if people actually believing that there's like some type of electronic machine down there. I actually don't think it is. I think it's literally just metals and organic stuff.
Yeah, and it's capturing that with
literally all
structure.
You need, and water.
Right.
That's all you need to actually start doing some fucking crazy shit.
I agree with you.
And it's like scientifically proven that you can. It just isn't like Marvel comic.
Well, let's be easy on the Marvel comics. We don't upset the Scientologist, the Lee McFan fiction crowd. But they all did kind of erupt out of the Hubbard scene. And again, there's this guy that was kind of the ringleader for all these science fiction writers at the time. They had a little club that he ran. His name was Forrest Ackerman, and infamous dude in monsters and stuff in Hollywood and whatnot. He used to do a monsters magazine or something like that. But he was the editor of this book club and this sci-fi writers club with Hubbard. And he explained in the 90s in an interview that when he was about in his 80s in the 1990s, he explains like, yeah, he said Jack was doing this one thing and we were doing that. So he's referring to like the OTO, what's the Agape Lodge of the OTO there in Pasadena, right? Yes. So he's saying Jack was doing this one thing, we were all doing that, talking about the whole club was. And then he said, then L. Ron came up with this new thing, and then we all started doing L. Ron's new thing for a while. So he's very nonchalant the way he explains these things. Like, yeah, we were doing this thing, and then we started doing that thing. But it sounds like they were all doing Thelema, and they all did some Scientology for a bit.
Parsons let the army or whoever he was like working for even show up at the lodge at his house.
What?
Yeah, he let them come. He let them see what the fuck was going on.
No, didn't he? No, he created the rocket fueled engine, right? JJ?
Yeah.
The solid state rocket fuel.
Solid state rocket fuel. Yeah. Wasn't his dad? I think I heard this. His dad was didn't. No, JJ. What was it off of the Penny Royal? They talked about it. Jack Parsons' uncle or dad was into like the paving business or something, like road paving.
That was a fellow by the name of James Shelby Downard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He invented this asphalt that became integral in making that solid state rocket fuel. Is adding this asphalt to that rocket fuel. So
it's kind of weird, right? How those two,
super weird,
land and the air. That's kind of, I don't know.
It sounds very alchemical. I'm not an occultist, but it sounds very alchemical.
There's certain stuff about his story that to me I don't buy, because like even JJ saying like there's just certain things that even I think in occult symbolism, if you read his story, it's just like I don't know if this is all like it's like reading the Bible. You don't take it literal. You know what I'm saying? Like even with all right, this whole idea of the tar and stuff. There's been plenty of times where I even talk about like before you cross the abyss, it looks like a black liquid flowing and moving and shit. I mean, there's just like so many things like him and Crowley. When you listen to a lot of their stories, you're like, this just sounds like a different way to describe like an experience. There's just I don't buy his fucking story, Jack Parsons, much at all.
He's a fraud. Jack.
Nor should you.
No. And what I was going to go into, and not to take up too much time, I think I might have said this last week. Recently, my opinion. It's funny. It's solid state.
Paved the way.
Another SS there for you. SS solid state. But but I do think again, if we never had this dude's fucking rocket technology, we'd never be saying we're sending motherfuckers to the moon.
Right. And who came up with the idea of sending people to the moon in rockets? Right. Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov, part of that same sci-fi writers club. Arthur C. Clarke, ardent kid diddler. Isaac Asimov, I don't know if I have any evidence of that, but Isaac Asimov Jr., he got busted with the largest child porn stash in American history. Take a while. You want to take an over/under guess on how much time he served, Landon? Largest child porn stash, U.S.
3 years. 3 years with chance of probation.
Say 5.
Ooh.
5?
He got like 6 months in home arrest.
What?
Largest
good behavior.
What?
Child porn stash in American history. You know the U.S. attorney let him walk? Robert Mueller.
Is that Bob Mueller?
Oh, Bob Mueller. He's the good old friendly Federal Bureau of Investigations director for many years for a number of high-profile parapolitical events. You
gotta have what's his face. Who was that guy that everybody thought was gonna
Comey?
No, all the pedos away when Trump was president the first time. Bill
Barr.
Yeah, is he in there somewhere? Right? He should be in there somewhere.
Yeah,
he's
dad.
A hero. He's in the mix of Comey and all those guys. Mueller.
Yeah.
What was Barr's dad's name again, JJ?
Bob, I believe.
Yeah, he worked for. He's a banker, right?
No, he worked for the Dalton School. Well, he's a lot of things.
School. Same
OSS
place
guy.
Epstein came out of. Yeah, Epstein came out of.
It's often claimed he hired Epstein, but from what I looked at, they missed each other by about 4 months.
Okay, they probably still knew each other, though. You know what I mean?
Very likely. Well, Bob Barr came from the OSS. He wrote a sci-fi book, part of that same sci-fi writers club. Wrote a sci-fi book. Most of that sci-fi writers club were spooks, right? For example, another guy in that same club, Paul Linebarger, wrote under the name Cordwainer Smith. Very famous sci-fi writer under that name, Cordwainer Smith. Paul Linebarger, Captain, U.S. Army, Intel, World War II, literally wrote the book on psychological operations. It's called the U.S. Army Manual on Psychological Operations, which was the manual that was in play for the Army operations until old Charlie Aquino came along and rewrote that book. So it's always spooks and occultists involved in this game, right? But sci-fi writers specifically, it seems. And they're the ones who bring us the ideas of rocketry, space travel from this Diddler's Sci-Fi Club, and then lo and behold, we get sexual, thelemic sex magic inventing solid-state rocket fuel, where they're launching giant dick statues into the ocean and trying to convince everybody they're going to space.
Fight Club. Who produced Fight Club?
Who produced Fight Club?
Yeah, isn't that dude? He's mobbed up too, right?
I can tell you, wrote Fight Club. I can't think of who directed Fight Club. I don't know who produced.
Yeah, the writer of Fight Club. I was just thinking of Fight Club for some random reason. Nick's laughing at it.
No, I'm laughing at the comments.
Oh, it was very random. So I was just thinking of Fight Club for some reason.
No, I did think that was cool. But
isn't that weird though? We get these ideas from fiction of space and rockets and travel and science fiction and diddlers, and then all of a sudden science proves that they can do it.
Yeah, and the globe.
When I say science, I mean Nazis and occultists for that matter.
Anybody that has shaped people's minds when it comes to space are all like really connected. I mean, you can even throw in Stanley Kubrick for 2001. I mean, every single person that has been known to like kind of have like a hand in like giving people what space looks like, Disney, they're all fucking fucked up.
Oh yeah.
No doubt, dude. I mean, you go even farther back than that, Nick. You go into Galileo. You know what I mean? I mean, they're shaping the early days of space, right?
For sure.
I don't even know how.
And that's the Vatican, right?
Forgot to even say that.
Maybe.
The people who gave us the first one, where everything spins around the world, he was an occultist, he was an alchemist, and then the next one that said no, we spin around the sun, he was an occultist and an alchemist. What the fuck? Wake up!
Right.
Don't take the shit literal.
Are you familiar with the Vatican? I mean, the Vatican's they're the ones who invented space. They defined all these things before the kid diddling sci-fi, folks did. So
no, they're still diddling kids.
Well, they're still diddling kids. I'm just saying before L. Ron and Friends came along, Jack Parsons and Friends. So, are you familiar with the Vatican's telescope in Arizona? I believe it's the largest in the northern hemisphere. Question mark?
Is it loose? No, that's the.
I think that's what they call it. Some sort of Lucifer type thing, right?
Yeah, Lucifer. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, Lucifer
telescope or something like that.
Yeah, that's the one that's telling
Mount
us
Graham.
about.
You've heard of this?
No, not Mount Graham, but I have heard of the Lucifer telescope.
Oh, that's even another thing.
I think that's here on Mount Graham. I think that's the one they got here.
People who made telescopes were also occultists. Like
you got to be right.
No, if you were to look these people up, even on Wikipedia, it will tell you at some point they're into alchemy or some fucking mysticism. Anybody who has anything to do with seeing space and telling us what planets are out there are fucking occultists.
Yep. Since day one.
Yes.
Since the man that Landon just brought was mentioning Galileo Galilei, right? This is one of the guys that helped us first bring these ideas of space to the Vatican.
Right. Funny how it goes through the Vatican too, right?
And funny how they're still the leaders in this today, right? So this Vatican Observatory, I think they used to call it Lucifer Telescope, but I don't think they might have changed the name of it here, fellas, because they're calling it something different now. But they're still the lead in these ideas today. So, like, again, this is one of the biggest, best telescopes in America, right? If not the biggest, I think.
I mean,
it's owned by the Vatican.
Shocker, right?
Right.
Jesuit world order.
There's another large telescope, one of the other biggest ones, I believe, in America, that sits on the top of a building in Arizona State University campus. I drink a lot of moonshine. St. Patty's Day 2008. I looked through that telescope for 1 second, and then I puked off the side of that building. Oh. But that telescope is owned by the. I was a friend with one of the students there in the. She worked. She's an astrophysicist, PhD student at the time. She worked for Lawrence Krauss. That was her professor. Lawrence Krauss, the astrophysicist out of Arizona State University. That's his telescope. I often wonder now, did Jeffrey Epstein buy that telescope? Because that was Jeffrey Epstein's boy, Lawrence Krauss. It's a nice telescope.
I mean, that's a pretty nice telescope. I mean, wonder how much it costs.
Well, let's find out.
Probably like 20 million, 15 million. I'd say 15 million.
I feel like it's got, dude. I mean, I don't know how much telescopes cost, but I just feel like you might be underselling it a little bit. These things got to be pricey, I feel like.
Oh yeah, I think so too. Yo, even the Hubbard telescope, the way the way the light reflects off of all the lens in there to give you the image makes it is the universal hexagram.
Are you familiar with Green Bank, JJ?
Green Bank?
Yeah, in Pocahontas County.
I don't think I've heard of that, no, sir.
Check that out. Check out that telescope.
What do they do?
Bro, that's the no-fly zone, homie. You can't have a microwave in within 100 miles of the area. No cell phones, no microwaves.
Green Bank?
Yeah, Green Bank. Just type in Green Bank telescope. That thing is huge. No, it's in Pocahontas County, West Virginia.
This is the NSA site for all the old phone collection data, huh? That's not what Green Bank, West Virginia. Surpassing. Oh, it's bigger than the telescope in Germany. Yeah, this is where they used to collect all the. Was it Prism? Was that the name of the program?
It might have. That was for the remote viewing, right? Prism.
It was one of those NSA. Well, I mean, that might have been true as well. But the NSA program Prism was to collect everybody's landline phone calls and whatnot. And I believe it all went through this site here in West Virginia.
Yeah, I've been there. It's about an hour away from my hometown. So
they're in Lewisburg.
Yep. It's crazy. I mean, it's massive, dude. It's stupid big.
If you ask me, there's a lot of things heading in West Virginia along the Blue Ridge Mountains there in the deep Appalachian side of West Virginia through the Jefferson and Washington National Forest and whatnot. That whole area could be hiding a lot of stuff through there, all the way up the state.
Dude, you ain't gotta tell me. I know that. I know that for a fact, dude. Even as a kid, dude, you just felt like an awe feeling, bro. Like I don't know what it is, but that's for sure.
Yeah, but like I said, they've been running whatever that program was there. They were collecting. I remember it was with my cousin and it was like the 90s or whatever. I'm in West Virginia. He's like, "Yo, they're collecting everyone's phone data." And I was like, "Nah, I don't think that's a little ridiculous. Don't you think, bud?" You know what I mean? This is before cell phones even. That man's was at one point in time the deputy attorney general of the state of West Virginia in recent years. So I suspect he's a lot smarter than I thought he was at the time. You know what I mean? So West Virginia's been used, I think, for a lot of these activities for many, many years, but the least of which is some of those big satellite programs for NSA type activities.
Yeah, I passed through the NSA the other day. I was telling you. Headquarters.
Yeah, Nick's been by there a couple times. You've seen that too, Nick, right? The Fort Meade.
Yeah.
When I've come down, like I passed it twice, I think.
Yeah, just recently, right? You were up on 95.
Yeah. Yo, that thing is huge.
Dude, it's nuts, ain't it?
Yeah, the first time I think I might have actually texted JJ or maybe even told you.
Yeah, you did. You're like, what is
that? I was like, yo, I think I just drove by. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't think they even advertised that's what's here. Like, I didn't.
Yeah, the big sign too, right?
Yeah, that's what blew me away. I was like, wow, like you're not even trying to hide it. Actually,
no,
the CIA does the same thing. I'm like, why does the CIA have a sign saying, "Look, CIA this way"? You know what I mean?
It's just like, oh.
Not very clandestine there, guys.
Yeah.
Now, do you know what's right beside that place, Nick? And the NSA headquarters there?
There's something else. Yeah, there was a few things that went over there.
It's the Cryptozoology Museum.
I don't know if I remember that, but I thought there was something else there.
Oh, the Spy Museum. Like a spook. It's a spook museum, right?
I think so.
I've never been to it. I think I know what you're talking about, though. So, you brought up a question while you're looking that up, Landon. You brought up a question in my brain hole here when you were mentioning earlier about some conspiracies being too young for you. What are your thoughts on 9/11? What's your take on that? What's your 9/11 tale there, friend? When did you get into that business? What's your thoughts on it? How do you feel about it today? These kind of things.
Well, as a kid, I remember my dad was telling me about 9/11, right? And I don't think he believed the whole story, not to the extent of Richard Gage and architects.
He didn't go full McGowan on September 12th, 2001, writing this is a conspiracy.
No, he wasn't there yet, and I don't think he could come to terms with United States actually killing 2,400 people. But
yeah, I mean it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I think that's one of the starter points of I guess that kind of the how-to guide of a conspiracy theorist, I guess you could say.
Was that what launched you on your path? Trying to understand.
No, it wasn't 9/11, man. Really, the first one I think I watched Alex Jones InfoWars in like 2014 or 2015. So I was kind of right on the edge of the Sandy Hook scene there. So that kind of got me digging into a little bit, and then just really watching Alex Jones all the way up until end of high school. I was watching him in class at school. So I mean, that's kind of got me.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
That's how you got started, huh? Alex Jones.
Yep, Alex Jones got me started.
So I remember September 11th, and at the time I was like, "Oh, this doesn't seem right. It doesn't feel right." But then I also remember being forced to go to combat for numerous tours over these matters and the immediate aftermath there. So, didn't have a lot of time to really consider it. By the time I did have time to consider it again, was it 10 years later? It was 2011. I just literally closed down Baghdad airfield in Iraq. Opened it up too in 2003, so I saw the full spectrum of that nonsense. Looked a lot worse when we left. But this sounds weird to say that today, but I got back from that deployment and Loose Change was on Netflix. So I watched that on Netflix. Couldn't imagine that being on Netflix today. But I watched that and I was like, you know what? Brought back all my previous memories and that didn't feel right that I hadn't had time to really consider for the previous 10 years of combat. So I was like, oh, you know what? Some bullshit, man. And I would say that probably affected me a lot because I didn't really buy into the whole Muslim attack situation, but I was just engrossed in it because, again, combat and active duty and everything else like that. But it's not a popular opinion to have when you're working at the Pentagon that this is all bullshit. This is all bullshit war. I'll tell you that much right now.
Dude, that's how that's how you get shut down quick, right, JJ?
You definitely can't ask anyone at the water cooler about these questions. You know what I mean?
You start digging, brother, you're gonna wind up like Casolero up there, man.
So obviously that is the way they do. You are correct. That is the way they do business in DC. That is the DC way. And you buck the system, and they got a way to take care of that. So, bucking the system it's a sliding scale, but obviously my thoughts have kind of, progressed over the years with 9/11 and some of the activities around it, but that was kind of my entrance into it. But Nick, when did you, I want to show you I want to show a clip. What I'm getting into here is I got a clip here about some 9/11 related activity. I just want to ask you fellas how you got into 9/11 first, because I'm sure, Nick, that was an early one for you as a New Yorker that you were like, what the fuck is this?
Yes, it was.
Were you doing that on September 12th, McGowan style?
No, I remember on September 11th when it happened and everything. I've even said that on the show multiple times. That was actually probably one of the things that really started making me wonder, because I heard, if you dig, maybe you can still find some of it. I've seen some of it floating around Instagram, but I remember hearing on the radio and even on the TV when I got home before it was after dinner of different situations and stories about shit going on inside the building. All of a sudden these explosions never fucking happened.
Gone.
So I heard this shit.
Never occurred. Nope, never happened, sir.
And I was like, yo, what the fuck is that?
Memory hold.
What is that?
You find
a lot of that shit got memory hold, dude. There's a lot of stuff memory hold on that subject today.
The passports that were found.
Yeah, that was weird. Even as a, even I was kind of young when that happened, and I was even like,
sure,
that really, you found that after that happened?
Not only there too, it was you could jump to OKC for that example. You're just driving with no tags.
That's a fucking catastrophe right there, right? That whole narrative they want people to accept. So one of the ideas that I have, Landon, when I was getting here with 9/11 is I'm oftentimes fascinated and nearly obsessed with the concepts of time. In fact, we just did a show on the Occult Rejects the other day about time, didn't we, Nick? Time slips and stuff.
Yeah, that was fun. That was interesting.
It's a good conversation. That'll be coming out soon. But one of the concepts of time I often wonder is we see all these things of like, oh, they're trying to program folks by putting this stuff into films and shows beforehand, and they obviously knew. And I often ask, okay, well, what we know is these ideas are in shows and programs before the events. We don't know if they knew, but we presume that's possible. But what we do know is that these ideas are in shows and programs before the major events, including 9/11. So in March of 1999, Fox aired the first pilot episode of a spinoff of the X-Files called something. I forget the name of it. I'll tell you in a second. And basically, the pilot of this episode, there's these like conspiracy theorist dudes who write a magazine, and they're trying to stop various parapolitical kind of events and stuff. The first one being someone has used the Promise software style stuff, which I know Landon's very deep into the Promise software, to hijack a remote pilot and hijack a civilian airliner to crash into the World Trade Center. This is in March of 1999. So I'm just saying, like, do these people are in the know, or just like, do these ideas exist in some sort of, where do ideas come from, right? Where, you know what I mean? There's a lot of questions we had there, but I'm saying isn't that weird? So as I've teed that up in a long sense, here's the clip right now. Meow.
What the hell are you doing? Why can't you stay out of this? Leave me buried.
What is scenario 12D? We know it's a war game scenario, that it has to do with airline counterterrorism. Why is that important enough to kill for?
Because it's no longer a game.
If some terrorist group wants to act out this scenario, why target you for assassination?
Depends on who your terrorists are.
The men who conceived of it in the first place. You're saying our government plans to commit a terrorist act against a domestic airline?
There you go. Indicting the entire government as usual. It's a faction. A small faction.
For what possible gain?
The Cold War's over, John. But with no clear enemy to stockpile against, the arms market's flat. But bring down a fully loaded 727 into the middle of New York City, and you'll find a dozen tin pot dictators all over the world just clamoring to take responsibility and begging to be smart bombed.
I can't believe it. This is about increasing arms sales.
Mm-hmm.
When?
Tonight?
How are you going to stop them? Why didn't you tell the world this? Go to the press.
You think I'd still be drawing breath 30 minutes after I made that call?
What the heck's that? Is that what it looks like? I think it is what it looks like.
What does what look like?
Modem protocols. Remote access. Somebody on the ground's flying your plane.
Bogey, sir.
Keep your course. We need to know our flight plan.
Tires. Your flight's gonna make an unscheduled stop. In exactly 22 minutes.
Corner of Liberty and Washington. Lower Manhattan.
World Trade Center. We're going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center.
Pretty wild stuff, huh, gents?
Dude, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, it was an offshoot of the X-Files. Same guy. Was that Chris Carter? Chris Carter, I think. Chris something. So are you familiar with that narrative with Osama bin Laden possibly stealing the Promise software, possibly being one of the agents distributing the Promise software around the world for the CIA, and then later going Colonel Chuck Hayes style, stealing his own copy and using it against the U.S. government, right? That is one of the narratives that allegedly exists around Osama bin Laden. It's often not described.
I'm definitely going to have to look in that. I did not know that. That's holy crap.
You're familiar with Chuck Hayes, though, right? We discussed Chuck Hayes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the dude out of Kentucky, right?
Yeah, the retired U.S. Air Force colonel / secret CIA agent who decided that he was going to steal his own, buy a copy of the Promise software out of an auction in Lexington, Kentucky, from the Department of Justice. Yep, and then started the fifth column. So essentially, bin Laden allegedly started his own fifth column, and that's allegedly what was depicted there in that Fox show. There was this terrorist organization that had used this Promised AI software stuff to hijack this aircraft.
So, what do you think? Do you think it's feasible? Do you think it's? I mean,
I got a lot of ideas, a lot of questions there. I mean, like, how do these people know the elements of these stories before they happen? Where do ideas come from? That kind of thing. How does time work? You know, I have a lot of ideas.
I say that all the time about The Simpsons. Like, people always like post it, like, "Oh, look, they got another one." Ho ho ho! I'm like, yo, did you ever come to wonder why they keep getting another one?
Right.
Like, who the fuck is doing that?
Right.
What's that happening? It's like, no,
The
we don't
ether.
think that far. It's just like, oh, that's cool because it was a cartoon I liked. Why is that?
They do. Go ahead, Landon.
Oh, I was just speaking on 9/11. Did you know about Eric Harris's dad?
The Columbine kid?
Uh-huh.
No, what do you got? Well, I'm not ringing a bell familiar to me right now. Please tell me.
So his dad, Eric Harris's dad, worked for the flight training program on 9/11. I mean, for the flight training program out in Colorado.
the Lockheed software flight simulator.
Yeah, it was the flight simulator that they were using. Eric Harris's dad worked there. So bring it back to who's your daddy.
I didn't realize they used that. They used that in some of the 9/11 pilots, huh?
Yeah, that was the Flight Safety Services, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that's another.
While we're on the topic, would you like a Columbine shooter's connection to Epstein?
Yeah.
All right,
let's hear it.
So, not Harris, Dylan Klebold. His maternal grandfather was this wealthy great grandfather was his mother's grandfather was this wealthy Jewish fellow in Columbus, Ohio. The Jewish Community Center in New Albany, Ohio, where Les Wexner, Epstein's only client, where Les Wexner held his mother's memorial service when she passed, was Dylan Klebold's great grandfather's Jewish community center, named after him. He built it.
Okay. Holy crap.
So, yeah, Les Wexner hangs out at the Jewish Community Center built by Dylan Klebold's great grandfather, a wealthy Jewish fellow from Columbus, Ohio.
JJ, only you would find that out.
It's a small world.
Dude, that's crazy. How long have you known that for?
Oh, I went deep on Wexner. Oh, a number of years. Wexner, according to a since released Columbus police report from circa 1989, the guy that Wexner had employed as his frontman before Epstein, apparently Wexner had, according to this Columbus police report, Wexner had him offed, hiring a Genovese family hitman to come murder his frontman. This is the guy before Epstein.
Okay. What Wexner and Epstein, that was the he was the money man, right?
Yeah, he was the only guy, right? He was the one that gave him that townhouse, right, in New York. Now, what's often not described about Les Wexner, the Abercrombie Victoria's Secret Limited fellow, right? He bought out Air America from the CIA.
Air America. I was getting ready to tell you, bro. That's what.
Yeah.
You know also who Air America was involved with?
Pardon me?
Air America was also involved in shoot. It was on the top of my head. I just lost it. Was what was the cat's name? Stephen Paddock's wife was a Filipino lady, and Air America was doing a lot of drops over in the Philippines as well, if I'm remembering correctly. I think that's right.
Lou
Ann Danley.
Mary Lou Ann Danley, okay.
Yeah. Check into her.
Yeah, I mean the whole Paddock family is super suspect going back to his dad. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff going on there.
And his brother,
including
speaking
him,
of CP, his brother gets caught with CP,
time.
right? Yeah, kind of like the Trump shooter. His brother also got, or his son. His son was it Roust or Ralph?
Yep, Ryan Ruth.
Is there Ryan Ralph? Yeah. So just funny how they get pinned on, with some CP, right?
Right. And it's convenient to get someone off the streets, right?
That's very suspect. I know that's a tool, right? I mean,
you can hack. I mean, they can hack anyone's computer, right? I mean, Alex Jones has made these claims. They've hacked my computers to put tranny porn on there, or whatever he was claiming that one time. Remember that one?
Yeah, but then he takes pictures with Tim Pool and a tranny.
Oh, that's right. He does. He's friends with Trans MAGA. He's friendly with the Trans MAGA movement.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on Tim Pool?
Train on that.
I'm not really familiar with him, to be quite honest with you. Strangely enough, my Air Force basic training bunkmate was a guest on his show who I have remained in contact with to some degree over the years, being both in the Air Force and whatnot. But I'm just saying that's where I met the dude, was basic training. He was my bunk neighbor. He's my bunk neighbor. He was the bunk next to me right there. And he was a Tim Pool guest last November. That was the first Tim Pool show I'd ever listened to. So
you're not missing much.
I didn't miss much in that show. So yeah, I appreciate your thoughts as well there, because I came to the same conclusion. I'm like, what is the popularity of this program?
Oh, dude, it's horrible. I used to listen to it just purely for his neurologistic programming, because it was somewhat impressive, but I just got tired of hearing the crap that comes out of his mouth.
Dude, if he wears one more beanie at a black tie affair, dude, someone's gonna slap him, dude. I'm not gonna do it, but someone's gonna slap that dude for the way he dresses in public at black tie affairs. And DC, I'm just saying, DC culture. You come up there in a tuxedo and wearing that fucking beanie hat, you're gonna piss some folks off. I've seen.
That's just his big.
I didn't wear a beanie hat. I wasn't a jackass, but
that's his big yarmulke. He's just showing allegiance.
There you go. That makes a lot of sense.
Yo, that guy has a private meeting with Netanyahu. How does that?
Kanye's friend.
How does that happen with Tim Pool?
He had a private meeting. Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe he's friends with Epstein. Epstein had some tight connections with the upper echelons. Oh no, that was Ehud Barak, not Netanyahu.
Ehud Barak.
Yeah, he used to apparently do war planning with Ehud Barak. Epstein did.
Didn't Tim Pool just recently get in trouble for they were taking money from Russia or something? Or is that
something like that, right? I didn't look too much into it. It might have been real.
I think it was like a company that was wanting to sponsor the show or something for like $100,000 or $70,000, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I didn't get too far into it. I tried to pay much attention to big conservative media there with all that Daily Wire nonsense. And I mean, Candace Owens, I'll occasionally catch what she's doing. She did some good repeat coverage of a French fellow who doesn't speak English. I appreciate that because that dude could not speak any English. She tried to get him to speak English, and he's just not having it.
The interview she did with the translator wasn't too bad, but like, yeah,
it wasn't too bad. But she did some good coverage of covering that topic.
Yeah. That was basically that was like kind of like my jesters, because a lot of the stuff that I got from that, I do admit, I got from Twyman's work. I just double checked. I just double checked a lot of it, and like I said, I will always say there was court cases that didn't exist, or at least I couldn't find, but the ones I did include, obviously, I found, and I do show the Pacer stuff. But
nice.
Yeah, a lot of it was from her work, but yeah, basically she did the same thing. You know, she took somebody's work.
No, I hear you. That's kind of the way I look at it too. That's a good example, Nick. Landon, are you familiar with this French President Macron situation? Emmanuel Macron, who's married to his husband's wife situation?
I am not. No.
Oh, so the current president of France is married to his high school teacher. They met when he was allegedly 16. He was actually 14. She was 39. They claim she was 39. She was actually like, I think 40 something. I don't know. There's a lot of stories around that don't even make sense. But high school teacher, you know, they've been banging out for a while. That's some weird stuff already, diddling stuff. Turns out that's his dad.
Macron's dad.
His girlfriend, he ends up marrying his teacher, who's not a woman, who's actually a man, and is not only just a man, it's apparently his dad.
Dude,
and you're thinking, that's some wild shit. It gets better. They're from this French chocolatiering family named the Trogneux family. And this French journalist that Candace Owens covered did a great job at exhibiting that in all likely probabilities, the Trogneux are a branch of the Rothschild family. So now, does that make more sense if I told you the Rothschilds were married to their father, dad, wife, husband?
Keeping it in the book.
That makes a lot more sense in that context, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Emmanuel Macron was the youngest head of the Rothschild Bank in France. Makes a lot more sense now, given this French journalist's interest in that.
Since we were speaking of diddlers and CP, JJ, did you want to get into any of some John Norman stuff?
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on that?
Nice.
Let's if I may ask, what are your thoughts on that 9/11 show? Like, you know, what are your thoughts? Were they writers in the know, or what do you think is going on there?
Probably some type of collective consciousness that they're wanting to get everybody to buy into to make it into reality.
Well, the TV show itself is already run by the government,
right? Probably years.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how does that end up in the plot line, right? Like, how does that end up in the plot line? Is there a government agent? Is Mark Felt? You guys remember Mark Felt?
No.
Or if there was, listen, I'm not, obviously something happened, but I mean, if any part of Hollywood was involved with presenting what happened, maybe that's another reason why it ended up in Hollywood before it happened.
That's a good point. That's a great point, Nick.
And then that's
part of the magical show, right?
I do think that is entirely what Thelemic magic in the bad sense, or people who are tied to Thelemic magic.
We had a lot of Hollywood heroes that day, fake heroes, that is, at least, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is manipulating the news and video stuff in Hollywood and NASA, and I think NASA and Nazis are hugely tied into it as well.
For sure. Me and that note with this, what you're saying with Hollywood being a part of it. Well, you had Mark Wahlberg saying that he missed a flight, he would have saved the day. You had actor James Woods doing the same thing, I believe. Like, oh, if I was supposed to be on that flight, if I was on that flight, this never went down.
Well, the guy who owned the building wasn't there either. He gives a story about like why he didn't go in that day.
Larry
Silverstein. Yeah,
or somebody like that.
Oh, Lucky Larry, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. Do you think it's kind of tied into with the Hellier documentary, kind of where they kept seeing that balloon, Nick? I mean, you talked about it, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Do you think it's some type of working, man? Do you think they're?
Yeah, I'm not. Oh God, it's not like I get off on trying to like. I guess, shit on other content creators, but I just I'm not a huge. I just think there's a lot of bullshit in that Hellier show. I'm just gonna be completely honest. Sorry.
Yeah,
people like it. I'm not knocking the people. I just think it's bullshit.
Okay.
I don't like. I think it was kind of like a lot of occult symbolism, and that was turned into like a goose chase. So,
Right.
I think it's an occult story. I think the fact that Alan Greenfield was in there was just more proof of that. OTO member,
friend of Kerry Thornley, I believe, as well, like Greenfield.
And he lived in like some type of looked like an old person's manor or something. His house did. I just thought that was odd too.
What's funny? There's people in the conspiracy community that actually like listen to that guy and think completely.
Oh.
You know what I'm getting at?
For sure. I don't share that same sentiment. I think he's a disinformation agent of sorts and pushing these ancient alien cargo cult ideals in his polemic magic style. That's my opinion.
Yeah. One of the main reasons, one of the many main reasons why I no longer podcast with that guy Lux that I did with the first year and a half is that even he was, fucking flip-flopping himself. That guy on the Occult Rejects, I don't know how many times has fucking said negative things about Alan Greenfield and Hellier. And like his fucking first or second show podcasting, I think out of the 3 that he did after he left the Occult Rejects, he had Alan Greenfield on and was like fucking stroking that dude's dick the whole episode. I was like, how did that happen? And then like other people that are now into podcasting that weren't until they came on the Occult Rejects that thought weird things about him. Now all of a sudden are praising the guy. So fucking weird. How does that happen?
He's a weirdo. That guy's a weirdo. I don't know him, but I just looked at him. I was like, this dude seems off. I mean, it looks like he might have some CPU on his computer.
Right.
Someone want
to check that hard drive. Here's a Hellier related tale you'll enjoy, Landon.
It's just a silly story the guy puts out, I think.
I think it's all silly, especially this Ingrid Cole being a real life person they perpetrated in there that was tied in with Greenfield knowing the answer to that. So, again, my opinion, entertaining program. I can respect that for that matter, but I don't, as far as it being sold as this kind of Blair Witch to me, it was more like a neo Blair Witch project. This toting the line between fiction and reality.
Drama. It was a drama.
Yeah, but intentionally toting that line, because here's an example of what I'm talking about. Blair Witch did a sci-fi or an A&E special claiming it was real before it was released at the theater. It was a psyop. I mean, I've probably just beat up a couple folks' ears with this story before, Lane. As you were saying, you beat up your girlfriend's ears with some of your conspiracy culture tales. Like you don't realize that Blair Witch is a psyop. Like it's so obviously a psyop to me. Like the whole mix of it, but including this program that was released a website back when websites weren't a thing, trying to convince everybody this was a real event before the film was released. Dude, I saw folks. I went and saw it like 3 or 4 times in the theater. I loved it, but I saw folks leaving the theater crying, like frightened and in tears, like within minutes of the film. Like to me at the time it was equally as exciting as the film, but it's crazy though.
I think I went like if it wasn't opening night, it was the next night with a bunch of friends. We were young and we were all under the impression that shit was true. And I think it was literally the next day, like one of us called one of our other friends and told them, like, oh yeah, we just saw that movie last night. It was fucking crazy, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yo, that's not actually real, right? And then like I think they even like explained like how it came out. And like so everybody else is calling the other one saying, oh yeah, we got had. That shit wasn't fucking real last night. I was like, fuck, yo, that shit had me.
Everybody was real, dude. They convinced everybody was real.
Yeah.
One of my old friends from high school that went with a bunch of us went and saw the film, the whole group of us. We went back to my folks' house afterwards, smoking some cigarettes on the back porch. Dude's afraid to smoke cigarettes on the back porch. He's like in tears, right? Today he's a lieutenant colonel of Green Beret. So last time I'd seen the guy a number of years ago when he was a major, I think he was a captain at the time. I made sure I told his troops about that out there in Colorado. I'm like, this dude, your boss here. We went and saw Blair Witch years ago. He cried and wouldn't even smoke a cigarette on my parents' back porch. Made sure his Green Beret troops were aware of that one. They freaked the people out, dude. That's what I'm saying. Dude, that was a full-on psyop, dude.
Yeah. It was pretty good. It was good though. Good marketing, and I wanted to believe. I still want to believe.
I still do think though, like, all right, but even with Hellier, I do think there's an occult tale in there. I think it's pretty much like the hero's journey. It's just
sure.
So different way.
I think they're occultists that are doing like, I don't know these people familiar, but I think there is some sort of occult ritual aspect to that whole convincing folks of these ideas, even if even if it's part of a larger kind of mockumentary bit, but still portraying that aspect to it in some sort of real capacity.
Me even putting it in this saying it the way I am, it's actually kind of complimenting their intelligence, so people don't get upset. Because if I actually think that they're an occultist and understand the shit, they're actually saying they're somewhat fucking smart.
That's what I'm saying, dude. It's well organized and well structured. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, you'd have to be intelligent for that. So one thing I think you'll enjoy, Landon, from that series, the little green goblins?
Yeah, the little green dudes.
The Kentucky Goblin incident, right? Was that
Kentucky Goblins? Yeah, the 50s.
I really like Nathan Isaac's view on that. He brought to my attention and some of his research there related to that Penny Royal series that that was part that they sent an MK Ultra guy out there to investigate that, and there very likely was an MK Ultra project where they went down into the countryside and dosed a bunch of evangelical Christians, some of the the snake calling Christians, and then those are the folks who were suddenly seeing little green goblins everywhere.
Yeah, you could. I mean, that's possible, right, JJ? I mean, you look at Gunderson, right? All these SRA victims.
Yeah, and it's confirmed they hired some like stage magician, I think it was. I have to get back to you on it, but not Lewis Jolyon West. Who ran MK Ultra? What was that dude's name?
Was that Angleton?
No.
Well, he had a CIA, I guess, but
the doctor. It'll come back to me. Anyhow, that dude, it's documented. That dude, the guy that ran MK Ultra, hired this, I think it was a stage magician, to go down there and investigate. Right. So that reminds me of Fred Chrisman and his UFO sighting. Right. They hire this sci-fi, the sci-fi magazine hires somebody to go investigate it. Right. They're the Ray Palmers or whatever. What was it called? Ray. You know what I'm talking about?
You're talking about the UF crash where he was the first one on the scene. Chrisman was picking up the black pieces of the UFO, right?
Yes, sir. The Maury Island affair, right? The Maury Island. Late June, early July, 1947.
Yes. But, I'm sorry, you asked a question. I didn't. We asked it again.
Well,
sorry.
So the guy that was sent there to investigate that, right, was hired by. It was Ray Palmer. It was like a sci-fi pulp magazine type of deal. Chrisman, strangely enough, had already written into that magazine in years prior, claiming to have met underground demons in Burma, but that's a different story altogether. So that magazine hires somebody, a writer, to go investigate that incident there at the Maury Island incident. So once again, you have a stage magician getting hired to go do this thing a few years later in Kentucky, but the 47 operation includes a sci-fi writer to go investigate this first UFO scene there in Maury Island, and by Fred Chrisman. One of the spookiest of all spooks, right, Landon?
Dude, that's the Chaos Agent Godfather, brother.
Right?
That dude's in it all. If you don't know Fred Chrisman, then
you don't know shit.
You don't know shit. I mean, that's true, right? I think once you start strolling down to the path of Chrisman, he's
everywhere.
Dark. He's everywhere, just like Recon Shuito.
Oh man. So when I was asking before if you've heard of Mark Felt's often described as the quote-unquote deep throat in the Watergate affair, right? He was the assistant director of the FBI in the years preceding Watergate. So on his deathbed, I believe, at the time when they try to claim these things, I feel like. But anyhow, he and Chrisman have a past. When we were talking about how do things get into fiction, right? How do things get into TV shows or movies? So there was a show in the 1950s called The FBI. So this is the early 70s where he's the assistant director of the FBI. So years earlier, he's still an FBI agent, and he was the technical consultant, FBI agent, Mark Feltz, on the television program, The FBI. Very hit program, hit TV show there, right? So he's in Hollywood serving as an FBI agent as a technical advisor. He would later be working for the nuclear power plant up there in Tacoma where Fred Crispin lived, and happened to do he signs off on the investigation to get Crispin the job at that power plant. Mark Felt. From Hollywood to Crispin in Seattle to Deep Throat in DC. I mean, this dude, much like Crispin, is everywhere. And of course, they knew each other.
Right. I'm not shocked. And knowing
Right.
Reconstruidos that Don Jeffries got me calling him that now. Reconstruido has got his dad being involved too in the Tacoma area with Fred Crispin. So just another pin on the donkey there, right?
Well, this is Crispin's friend and at one time assistant FBI director Mark Felt. Like I said, I think on his deathbed in 2008, they got him to admit that he was Deep Throat. Like, I think literally he's dying. Yeah, like sign this. Are you Deep Throat? Sign this.
Right.
Crispin, the man, the myth, the legend. I mean, he literally is everywhere.
Do you know much about him too, Nick, as well?
No.
Oh shit.
Watch out. Landon's a big fan of Crispin's work.
Dude, Fred Crispin. I mean, basically from the Maury Island incident to the three tramps being photographed. Allegedly, he's one of the three tramps of the JFK assassination is how I stumbled across him. And then you get into deeper and you find out that he was, one of the first UFO crashes in United States history in the Maury Island affair. He's involved in that as well. So he's kind of into the parapolitical landscape, right, JJ? And knowing Reconstruido says that he knew Fred Crispin as well. So Reconstruido and the Inslaw affair.
Yeah, so Crispin and Marshall Reconstruido, his dad, had served together at some point in time. They were tight. They were business partners as well. Not in the Maury Island incident, but how is it this man Crispin? He sees the first UFO. He's the grassy knoll shooter. He's connected to, quote unquote danger man of the octopus, right? Like, how does one achieve such status? He's the Forrest Gump of parapolitical activities, essentially. Him and Reconstruido both.
I would just like to see him, like a live performance of him, just to hear his story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you were asking me where he was. I told you I couldn't find him, and I was like, and if anyone's going to disappear, live under an assumed name, it's going to be Michael Reconstruido, because they did that Netflix documentary, and those directors kind of act like his handlers, but he's got no known records anywhere. So whatever he's doing, he's living off the grid. I can tell you that much.
What do you think about him, Nick? Did you end up watching that documentary on Netflix about the octopus?
No, I don't think I did.
They did a decent job, right, JJ? I guess for someone like just wanting to know kind of the who's who of the Inslaw affair, other than the Fred Crispin connection, which is very crucial, and the bioweapons lab in Indio, California. I think it's a decent documentary. I mean, right?
They do a
JJ?
good job. They do a good job. I feel like they do a good topical job on the matters. They do the standard Netflix, 3/4 of it being a very excellent look into the topic. And the last quarter, they hit you with the old Shyamalan twist. And Maury Terry's a drunk idiot. And Michael Reconstruido is a fat slob who does meth. They do these kind of things. Danny Casolaro is a drunk. That one really got it. Like, I didn't know. I obviously did not know Danny Casolaro. He died in Martinsburg, West Virginia, Sheridan hotel room in 1989, right? Is that right? 91?
91. 92.
Circa.
91 or 92.
That bitch they put in the documentary. I wanted to reach the August 10th, 1991. Yes, sir. So that bitch I went in the documentary where the first 3/4, she's like, oh, Danny is great. Danny's doing this. And then the last quarter of the film, Danny's a drunk. He's a piece of shit. He was a terrible father, terrible brother, I wanted this and it's his ex-girlfriend. She works for CBS. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Dude, you get into Bill Cooper comes out with The Hold a Pale Horse literally like 6 months after Danny dies.
Yeah. What's that about? That doesn't seem right either, does it?
I think that's Danny's book, dude. I think The Hold a Pale Horse, he's jacked it. I think he jacked the documents, man. If you want, I mean, that's what they were calling it. That's what Danny was going to call it.
That's one thing to consider. It's possible, but I look at it as maybe he named it that to deter any attention away from Castellero's effort, right? Because obviously Castellero's reaching out to publishers. He's probably sent some treatments of some regard of that book to certain publishers, right? So
Right.
I'm just saying it is odd that Cooper would name his book that, because it's documented in Castellero's own notes, which are on file at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Riley Strain's old alma mater. That he did document it as that was the title of the book. So it is odd. I think some of those files, much like everyone else's files, much like Maury Terry's files, a good portion of those have been restricted from the public. Much like Ed Sanders' files, despite him putting them in Princeton Library, despite Princeton Library putting them out for public use, somebody has jacked some very important Process Church-related files, not the least of which is hours of audio recordings of interviews with a fellow by the name of Tiny Lentini, who is perhaps one of the most integral characters in that entire narrative.
You were telling me about Tiny. Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, Tiny's an outlaw biker gang guy who diddled a lot of kids, diddled his own kid, had a number of kids taken away, did a lot of time, sold a lot of folks out. So he was narking on everybody, and from federal level to state level. And that's what a lot of these process guys do. There's my favorite character, Edward Wayne Edwards. When I say my favorite character, I don't condone his activities. I don't approve of serial murder over many decades, which is what Edward Wayne Edwards did. He did so under the guise of always narking out his crimes to the feds and local law enforcement. He even testified against guys he put away in prison for the murders he committed in those trials. So this is what the kind of stuff Tiny Lentini did too. I suspect this is protocols. This is, as you were saying in our last conversation, Landon, these things are probably written down in a checklist somewhere. But this is how these characters operate in this dark web of spook and satanic cult activity, right? So Lentini's operates in a similar fashion. He was a 1% biker. It's my understanding you got to murder some people to be a 1% biker.
The 1%ers, yeah, they
it's like the top 1% of all the biker gangs, I guess, right?
Right, and they were tied in with the Hells Angels too, right?
Well, I think they're part of it. Yeah. He was not held. I forget which one he was off the top of my head, but so he's deeply involved in the Westchester cult scene. His motorcycle gang is per his statements, and again, audio interviews that have since been stolen from Princeton University and Ed Sanders files. But apparently in those audio interviews, my understanding, he describes how they provided security for the Son of Sam cult activity and other Process Church cult activity of Westchester County, which there's a lot of. Been going over a lot of that activity with a fellow author by the name of Jonathan Mitchell, who's done a deep study of Maury Terry's work and other associated satanic cult Process Church activity in and around Westchester County, Yonkers, New York. So very dark stuff. There's no shortage of it. You know what I mean? So the Lentini would have been eventually admitted as a priest into the cult, apparently, but initially served simply as his biker gang served as security, which is normal. As you're mentioning, the Hells Angels, Manson used them in the process wing of the Manson family there. They used them as security for that same purpose. They also used the Gypsy Jokers. So much like Lentini says he was eventually admitted into the cult, there was a Gypsy Joker that meets that same qualifications and around Manson, a fellow by the name of Victor Wilde. A fellow by the name of Victor Wilde who's very, very wealthy still today. But at the time of the Mansons, he was an outlaw biker dude, and he fits the same mold as Lentini did. Now, there is some crossover with Lentini. Lentini allegedly did bodyguard work for Mama Cass, who was a member of the Process Church and financing it out there on the Cielo Drive wing there in Benedict Canyon, where the Manson family murders occurred.
Do you think that?
But that's why I feel like Lentini's important, right? It's because this you see on the narrative I'm painting with this satanic cult activity and all this drug trafficking circulates around these outlaw biker gangs, and we can see some of that activity. But Lentini fits that kind of mold as a top level guy of Edward Wayne Edwards of a killer, and a top level guy like Victor Wilde, who again, rest assured, seems to have tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars in wealth today.
Yeah, the biker gangs for sure. With the drug trade, I mean, you're talking direct involvement of pretty much all the methamphetamine trade in the United States, right? And most of that's all biker gang stuff.
Always has been, it seems, right? Meth capital of the world,
Modesto,
California. Yep.
Right. So there's probably definitely some. You got.
I was just gonna say I was just reading to the your note of the Hell's Angels. I was just reading about some meth busts of Hell's Angels in Modesto just last week.
Is Modesto? That's like near San Fran, right? That's around in that area.
Yeah, it's inland, but yeah, it's about 2 hours inland there, yeah, from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
It's the meth capital of the U.S. Fantastic place, really lovely. You're liable to get stabbed there if you stop by, though. Last time I was there about 5 years ago. Went to the mall there. Really creepy experience. I just went there for the experience of going to the mall in Modesto, but nonetheless, I was in the area. It's a weird town. Here's a true crime. Do you do a lot of true crime? You have a lot of interest in true crime stuff, Landon?
No, not as much really, but I'm definitely open to it though. I mean, I know, the bigger, the Gacy stuff really is my extent of it.
And the Norman stuff, which we can definitely talk to. I won't keep us too long. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that Norman stuff, but while we're on talking about Modesto, and what I would actually allege is a satanic sort of ritual human sacrifice murder situation is the murder of Lacey Peterson and her infant unborn child.
I've heard.
Her husband Scott
that.
Peterson is in prison today for these murders. I would argue he's been set up for these murders in this kind of the same cult network I was describing how Edward Wynne Edwards operates by setting folks up for murders and his satanic ritual human sacrifices for this kind of hand of death style kind of cult network. If you're familiar with the stories of Henry Lee Lucas, I would actually allege that Edward Wynne Edwards serves as like a general in that army of the hand of death, as Lucas describes. Nonetheless, Scott Peterson, the man in prison for this today, the murder of his wife and unborn child, was the #1 fertilizer salesman in that Modesto, California region, if not California at all, right? So, and he's in Modesto. Fertilizer is necessary in the production of methamphetamine. So, you're mean to tell me this dude's not involved in some weird kind of meth situation and being the #1 fertilizer salesman in the meth capital of America? I'm not buying it. So back to this drug network, right? In the biker gangs and et cetera. He very well could have been involved in the network and done something to piss the network off, and they murdered his wife and unborn child and set him up for it. That's the way I see that going down. Because again, you're not going to convince me this dude who's winning, like he's the #1 salesman in the company, dude, selling all this fertilizer in Modesto, and like his stepfather who got him the job is this super connected dude out of San Diego, and it's an odd environment. It's an odd environment, but I'm convinced he was involved in some weird shit.
Are you familiar with the John Benet Ramsey case?
Ooh.
Yes, sir, I am. Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the dad working for? Here we go again with the dad connection. What's up with him working for Lockheed?
Yeah, right. He worked at Lockheed, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, he worked for one defense contractor, and his son worked for a different one, I think, right?
He worked for Lockheed, though.
So he had a son from his previous marriage, I think, is how it went down. He had an elder son, I believe, who worked for. There was some connection there with it. I know. I'll take that back. I'm familiar with there were some Ramsey connections with Lockheed, and I think another General Dynamics. You're right. I think so. Yeah.
That's just some of the true crime stuff. But I found it weird that the dad worked for Lockheed Martin.
Well, Nick will find that weird. Nick often is the one describing to me all these NASA connections and aerospace connections.
Yeah, there is actually eventually at some point we will get to talking about that. Because I honestly think if we really looked into it, I think we will actually find something there.
It seems to be a pattern, so I wouldn't expect. I would not doubt being able to find more. Right?
Yeah. Watch for the next big one that comes out. Somehow, somebody from NASA will be involved.
What? Go ahead, Landon. What were you saying?
Oh yeah. What was where's the NASA connection with the Idaho 4 again? Is there one there?
Oh well, I just found a new one actually. So there is one there. I don't want to detour too far here. I wanted to hear what you all had to say on the Norman stuff. That's a subject that deeply interests me as well. These diddler networks and how they function. And Norman's a major functionary in that process, obviously, with being able to, getting shut down in one city, going to another city, right? And then he's got his note cards already, 10,000 note cards with customers and everything else. So obviously that's organized. Obviously there's a larger effort, but John Benet Ramsey being Katy Perry. What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't think so. I don't know.
John Benet died, right? Is that what you're saying? Because there is a theory that this software company your father was associated with I think Lockheed, like you're saying, is somehow making an AI Jean Benet or a CGI Jean Benet, and there's a theory that she never existed except for in like digital photographs.
What?
You familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I've heard of that one too.
That one, I mean, listen, but maybe the kid's lying. But Teresa had on her show one time, one of her friends was friends with her brother. And he can say, I have seen her and she does exist.
She's real.
Yes, but he says she is real.
Access Graphics, that was the graphics company.
Yeah, because I brought that up because I have heard that story and it's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I watched
videos of it. You know what I mean? Like, is it possible? I suppose it might be possible. There's videos of this young girl, right? Like at the pageants, right, and stuff.
Right. Yeah, definitely possible, JJ. I mean, maybe, I don't know. It could be a stretch, though. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
I believe I can be sold on the Alex Jones is Bill Cooper.
There you go. Moving the needle there. Huh?
Yeah.
So as we close out the show here, Landon, I appreciate your time, and Nick, as always, appreciate your time. What were you talking about before, Norman? That's the subject I think is often it's getting a little bit more attention now, but has existed for many years without any attention.
Right. If you give me like 5 minutes or so, we can bounce this ideas off. All right. So John Norman, right, running out of Dallas, Texas.
Take 10 if you need it. Take 10 if you need it.
Not the 1950s to born in California. Moves to Dallas around the age of 21, gets busted for having 10,000 note cards, right? As you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Clients. So kind of the same Epstein network. I got some notes written down actually here. It was the Odyssey network. So it goes deep into the JFK assassination along with John Wayne Gacy. And you could even, we'll get into a little bit of the Franklin scandal with Paul Bonacci tie-in as well, which is super suspect. Okay. Yeah. So
he was a recruiter in the whole network, right?
Yes.
Bonacci?
Yeah. No. Paul Bonacci, yes, he was a recruiter, and so was Philip Paskey. Philip Paskey was getting all the kids for John Norman in Dallas.
Yep.
So the people we're talking about in the Odyssey Foundation are higher echelon of people.
My life.
That could be Philip Paskey, dude. Pull up a picture of Philip Paskey real quick. That could be him.
That was for Nick. Yeah. That one was for Nick. That's my old Dr. Buffalo Jared review.
I kind of assumed. I mean, it just kind of looks like the same.
Sticks out, doesn't he? Kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, doesn't he? Sorry to interrupt you, Landon. Dude. Can you spell? I forget how to spell Paskey. Can you spell that for me?
Paske.
Right.
Philip Paskey. Yeah, I've been Philip Paskey, John Norman,
Bill Blasky.
Yeah.
SNL bit. Bill Blasky.
Now, Paul Bonacci actually goes on the testimony to say, let me find it here, about talking about Philip Paskey. This is Paul Bonacci speaking.
Yep.
Let me find it. I got it written down.
So Bonacci and him knew each other, huh? As part of the recruiting network?
Bonacci actually said that he's seen he didn't say exactly Philip Paskey, but he said a male that was dressing up as a female, which Paskey was known to do, according to some of the victims.
He's got a real Buffalo Phil situation going on here, huh?
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, to bring in the Philip Paskey. Allegedly, John Wayne Gacy thinks that these guys were staying in his house, Philip Paskey and John Norman, up in the Chicago area, especially the Urbana area, which we could tie in a bunch of different clown connections there as well. You could get into Patch Adams, which is also from Urbana, Illinois. John Gacy is around the Urbana area. The Brian Peck dude, which was on the Nickelodeon dump not too long ago, had a picture of Gacy.
He was Leonardo DiCaprio's stand-in for Growing Pains.
Right. And he had that dude had a picture of Gacy, and nobody talked about really that angle of it. It's kind of like a blow by. Yeah, he had like a signed picture of Gacy and was pen pals with him. So let me find it here. Sorry, where was that again? I was at John Norman. Philip Paskey talking. Bonacci
We're talking about the dynamic
Phil.
of the house there at Gacy's house. Philip Paskey, according to Gacy, Philip Paskey just like giving them blowjobs.
Well, Phil,
isn't that what he said? Isn't that what he's like? Yeah, he just like to come over and give him blowjobs.
Yeah, he liked to get blowjobs, is what he said.
Yeah.
But he also was talking about where they were staying there when John would go out of town, for different meetings, because he was a part of the JCs. If you didn't know that as well, Bill Clay,
JC of the year, right?
The prison. Yeah, that motherfucker had a miniature golf course. Didn't he have like a putt or like a fucking like a one? He had something even installed in prison when he was in there, Gacy.
Did he really? Yeah. He had some status. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, he. So if they never let him out, if they didn't let him out early, he never would have done the other shit. First off, but like I think it was like a one, whatever it is, where you just try to get like that last putt. It was something like that. It was like literally like something to practice on. They installed because of him.
Yeah, it's super. I mean, it's creepy, really.
That's what this photo is, there, right? He was JC of the year, right? So he's posing with Rosalind Carter at the National JC's dinner, right?
Yeah, he's doing that shit in prison too. Fucking insane.
Well, do you know what he was doing to run those JC operations? He became National JC of the year because he signed up all these new chapters and new members because he was showing porns at all these different JC's meetings.
That's a theory I've heard.
Wasn't legal, so he had all this. He had the in on the porn, right?
Well, not just any porn, JJ. We're talking stuff.
Obviously, yeah, he had it all, though, right? He had it all.
Well, that's what Gacy was known for, along with John Norman. That's what it was. It was a snuff production company. John Norman would get the kids, kill them, I guess, and then bury them at Gacy's house, which was some of them at least were buried in under Gacy's home. That's why Gacy believes that they were not all his killings, which I do agree with. I don't think Gacy killed them all. But I can bring you.
He missed to he's like, there was like, what, 32 bodies under there? He's like, yeah, I did 33. Like 12 of those.
Or he had
33. 33. Yeah.
Yo, he even he has a photo.
He only missed like 12, though, right?
Yeah, only 12 or 13. Yeah. So, I'll read you Paul Bonacci's statement. This is Paul Bonacci of the Franklin scandal, for anybody who does not know who Paul Bonacci is. He says, at that point, I agreed to go along with whatever, they want and stuff. It kind of talks weird. We went back to the hotel. That's where Tony, who was another guy, not me. He was an older guy and stuff. He had a lot of pock marks on his face, kind of skinny. He also can pose as a woman, which he has done on numerous occasions. So John Wayne Gacy makes 3 payments to a guy by the name of no other than our man standing right there, Philip Paskey. So you kind of get into Gacy, and also another guy to talk about is Rossi, which was another guy along with this with John Gacy's program as well. Let me find. I have a thing on Rossi as well. He was kind of mobbed up. Michael Rossi. Yeah, he was an employee of Gacy's construction company and lived at the home. That's who dug the basement of John Wayne Gacy's house. Oddly enough, Rossi was mobbed up with his political ties. And if we're getting into
mobbed up from the Chicago outfit, like the Johnny Roselli.
Yeah. Yes,
I believe they're important in the JFK story, right? All the Chicago outfit, right?
That's where I'm getting it. That's where I'm bringing this one.
Got a little heady. I apologize.
You're good. Jack Ruby, who kills Oswald in the parking garage area. He had
Jacob Rubenstein.
Jacob Rubenstein, yeah, his real name.
Don't dead name him.
No, don't dead name. Oswald was renting an apartment from John Norman, which is also weird. I mean, Jack Ruby was renting the apartment from a guy by the name of John Norman. And the only thing to go off of that was a signed, I think it was a lease agreement. There's the Chicago Tribune, I think that's where I pulled a lot of this information from. If anybody wants to check it out, they kind of ran some, there's a couple different papers they ran in the 70s about it. But the crazy part is that in the 60s, Norman was running around Dallas. So, you know, that kind of leads me to believe of him actually renting the apartment to Jacob Rubenstein. Is it too far-fetched for us to believe that Norman was mobbed up as well? You know what I mean? Was this?
I think they
I don't think so at all. I don't think that's very reasonable.
To do this for sure. They were just like running like basically shit for other people. I think.
Now, how does the mob obtain blackmail on said politicians?
Yeah.
So
well, according to the Franklin scandal and a fellow West Virginian, we know that story, don't we? There, Landon, Henry Vincent,
right? Henry Vincent, DC Madam. So that's kind of, you know, that's if this is how we're going to control people, right? This is how you do it. Sexual blackmail is it's the only blackmail, really. So, other than, you know, the Gacy ties to, I think Gacy was I don't think he killed all those people, but I do believe that he was a part of the Odyssey Foundation. So
let's give some proper parapolitical. Well, I know I like those ideas. The Odyssey Foundation. I know it's a good idea for sure. I think there's a lot that episode, whatever that epicenter you just described of the activity from Texas to Chicago, these cards being able to just be reproduced and the operation stood right back up. There's a lot to be said there, a lot to be unpacked there, right? We don't know about yet.
No, especially with the mob connection to Norman.
Well, the Chicago outfit.
Yeah.
The same folks that, you know, that are deeply connected to a lot of other parapolitical stuff like the JFK stuff, right? We can't just go past a fellow West Virginian here, though, Landon. Henry Vincent. Not only just a fellow West Virginian, he's a Logan County native. I believe he's from Man or War, one of the two towns.
War. Man or War, right?
Man or War, right? Well, there's a lot.
No, there's a
lot of
war
war and a
lot
of
names.
that went on down there in Logan County. Yeah, those are the actual names. But he's from down there. He's a funeral director still to this day, I believe.
Right.
At the time of the Franklin scandal, he was a funeral director sliding payments for some politicians, right? For some underage boys, right?
He was dealing some pimping out kids. No. Henry Vincent was not pimping out kids. Henry Vincent actually refused.
Pimping out the kids, right? He was pimping out the men, the adult men, apparently.
The men. He would not do kids. So that
it was the guy that committed suicide in the Boston hotel that I can't think of his name right now.
Right. And the way he finds out about
the political guy that brought Vincent into it, right? Vincent was a funeral director. This other dude, who's the politician scandal, lobbyist dude, he's the one who brought in all of the situation to Vincent because they were sliding credit cards to his funeral home, right?
Yeah, and they had the double glass doors. That's how windows. That's how Vincent found out about it. He actually, I think he stated that he went into a back room and there was like a whole server room of computers and monitors recording all of the activities. Craig Spence.
It was Craig Spence that brought him in. They recruited Vincent into the operation. This guy was the brains behind the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy that commits suicide in that Boston hotel room, allegedly, like puts on a tuxedo or whatever. Just like, I'm going to kill myself in this tuxedo.
What's your opinion on the Franklin, JJ? And you as well, Nick?
I'm glad you asked me that, but I'll let Nick answer that before I do.
I definitely think there's a lot of screwed up shit going on. I think there was a lot of disgusting stuff going on. I think it was MK Ultra. I think there was kid diddling. If people want to hear more, you can go to the Occult Rejects. And yes, since we're always ahead of our time, if you don't mind going back about 3 years, we do have a 3 or 4 part series on the Franklin scandal.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
And on John Wayne Gacy and John Norman in the Loyal Order of the Moose.
There you go.
A 4-part series on that as well. If people don't mind going back about 3 years, you can listen to that as well.
I'm not even sure if I've heard those, so I'm definitely going to check those out.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Shit was, like I said, we were definitely ahead of our time at one point. People still coming out with this shit now. They're like, "Yo, did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like I covered it 3 years ago."
One more thing, JJ, to add to that, if you guys don't mind, real quick. John Norman, at the end of his cycle, he wound up he dies in California in prison, but around 2008, I think, if I'm saying this right, Nick, was he around in Pennsylvania as well? So he's kind of around that whole Sandusky operation. That's kind of what I'm pointing towards too. Was Sandusky, the offshoot of a John Norman type ordeal?
Well, I think you just identified our future episode. We're going to have a discussion on there, Landon, is the Sandusky stuff and how it relates to all these things. Are you familiar with Ray Griecar? The district attorney that tried to bring charges on Sandusky back in 1998 and then later disappeared and is now presumed dead.
Okay.
Story to be told there, fella. Story to be told there, friend, for sure. That's not gonna be one for tonight, though. That's gonna be a longer tale, I think. Trying to unpack some of that.
That's probably a couple episodes. I would say.
I like your head's out there for sure on that, because these networks probably, but all these networks seem to, it's easy to presume based upon their operations and activities that they are operating amongst them, in some sort of interwoven network. But, when you bring up examples of how closely related they are between this Norman, Jack Ruby, you know what I mean, John Wayne Gacy, this whole enterprise and this whole corridor from Texas to Chicago, I mean, you have to start assuming that things like Sandusky's not that far off, et cetera, et cetera. And again, you have some weird deaths around that, including the district attorney. This dude was so serious about getting busting Sandusky, he was setting up sting operations with Sandusky victims. He himself was hiding out in the closet in the kitchens of these victims' homes when Sandusky's in there talking to these children and stuff. So that's Ray Griecar. Again, he disappeared. They found his laptop in a river, and he's been nowhere seen ever since. I think that was 2006.
What's the name, JJ? The DuPont dude that got popped for all the CP2. You remember? Didn't he rape his own 3-year-old?
The one that old Biden let off?
Yeah. Not Hunter Biden, but his brother, Beau Biden.
Yeah. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was a DuPont for sure, with the last name DuPont, paternal DuPont. But yeah, he diddled his own, 2-year-old, right? And said, this guy's not going to do well in prison. So we're not going to
let him off.
We're just going to let him off. I mean, he'd already been convicted, too. That's the crazy part. He basically got pardoned somehow by the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. I'm not sure how that happened, but you and I both know, I'm sure, since you're over there near the Delaware regions, the DuPont's still in Delaware. I mean,
I got to be careful. I actually worked at one of their houses, so.
Oh shit! Okay, well then you're innately familiar with how much they own Delaware still. That Biden home they gave, Les Wexner style for like $1 to Joe Biden, that DuPont estate. That was that shows you who Biden's beholden to, right?
Super. I mean, that family, that's another episode in itself, JJ, the DuPont family. Are you familiar with them, Nick?
Yes. Yeah.
Dude.
I know
those guys.
Like some occult stuff. I forgot exactly how I came across it, but I've definitely have mentioned it.
They're into some creepy shit.
They got into gunpowder, right? That's how they got started, JJ.
Oh, aren't they
gunpowders
associated with the Council of 9? Possibly.
I think they might be included in the Council of 9. That sounds correct. If not, they're not that far off from that social circle of folks.
I always get them.
If I may, go ahead, Nick.
No, I always get them and the Folgers, I think, confused with who was in the Council.
Oh, okay. I know the Astors were involved too, right, in the Council of 9. We'll have to look back. I'm not sure. I don't have the inclusive list. There was a bunch of blue blood families, though, for sure.
I got the.
But to answer your question, Landon, what I think of the whole Franklin scandal, Henry Vincent, Craig Spence situation, I want to know where that intersects with a former U.S. Senator Barney Frank was running a brownstone operation where he got called out on congressional floor at the time for running this back in '85. His boyfriend and him were running apparently an underage boys, sexting operation out of a brownstone, not that dissimilar from the Franklin operation, where they had set it up for cameras and stuff, and having parties at.
Nice when we start talking.
Is this thing? Am I back?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
it's funny how you start talking about these things and this happens.
Your mic's overheating.
Barney Frank was running his own Franklin operation. I want to know what the hell's going on with that and where it intersects with the Franklin scandal. That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
Well, I appreciate
Barney
both your gents' times. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. That's fine. I was just saying that it's very, very suspicious around the same time too. You know what I mean?
And he continued to be very powerful for many, many years until his death. I think he's dead now, but he's out of office. Anyhow,
can we get this guy on the show?
Discuss Buffalo Jared.
Yeah,
he's supposedly in a Connecticut mental institution awaiting trial for murder in Connecticut and numerous charges of attempted murder in Massachusetts, and at least one charge of public indecency where he puts on the front window of a McDonald's after he stabbed a couple of McDonald's employees. Nonetheless, I don't know where he's at. His court cases aren't public. He's allegedly in a mental institution, according to one newspaper account. Obviously, the mental institution is not going to tell me if he's there, but yeah, he tried to get me to hire him as his PR guy. He wanted to be my PR guy, and he was really adamant about it. The guy that he murdered, apparently they also had a gay sexual relationship, which, Buffalo Jared was barking up the wrong tree in that department. But the guy that he murdered, he initially made contact with, he got that guy to hire him as his PR guy. The guy invented some fucking rake, some like weird. When I say invented a rake, who needs to, like? There's no really. It's a bullshit invention. But he hired Buffalo Jared as his PR guy, and shortly thereafter, I guess started banging him. I don't know, and then Buffalo Jared. And I only know that because dude went out to Martha's Vineyard, and there was a domestic dispute with Buffalo Jared here in December. Then Buffalo Jared murdered him in May, and then went on a multi-state stabbing spree, including pissing on a McDonald's front window and demanding some different food. Anyhow, but he hired the guy to it's a PR situation. I'm like, well, is this dude? I picture this dude like laying down on the couch, Steve Buscemi style from that Adam Sandler movie. He's got the lipstick, put on the lipstick. He's writing down names of people he's going to go assassinate. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm still high up on the Billy Madison movie. I feel like I'm still high up on Buffalo Jared's list here. But yeah, his victim was the guy that hired him as his PR rep. So I don't know. It's I figured Nick would enjoy the NASA shirt though.
Yes, this dude will do some coke off your cock. You know what I mean?
Oh God, man!
If I did a lot of coke, up a lot of cocks. Looking at this fella, you know what I mean?
This is the dude. This dude's got some stories. I want to get him on the prison FaceTime call. We'll let him join in.
Well, if we can do that, I will be happy to join you just for shits and giggles. Jared, what's up? Long time no see. Good to see you're now a woman and have changed your name. Anyhow,
hell yeah,
I will close out with this statement. Turn over to you, gents, for some closing statements here tonight. And I appreciate your time and great conversation. I just want to offer you this MK Ultra aspect of this guy. So his father is a pretty famed sports psychologist and hypnotist. He worked for the family business, the Revisa family sports hypnotist and training business. They're credited. So his father, the starter of that business, the man who founded it, was his father's uncle. So Buffalo Jared's great uncle, Ken Revisa. Ken Revisa is credited with breaking the curse of the GOAT for the Chicago Cubs, thus causing them to then, or allowing them to win a World Series. They recognize Ken Revisa's sports hypnotists, skill sets as helping them win a World Series and breaking the curse of the GOAT. So I don't know what they've done to Buffalo Jared, but it can't be good. Psychologically and hypnotist speaking wise, right? Programming wise, right?
So this dude actually wanted to be your PR agent? Like, that's a true story?
Big time.
Hell
Followed me
dude.
on Twixter for like 6 months, always messaging me. I finally took a phone call with a man. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be up forward with you, but I don't need a PR guy. And I was like, the other thing is, you creep me the fuck out. You don't smile on any of your photographs. Why would I hire a PR guy who doesn't smile in photograph? He had an entire website of him and his creepy model girlfriend never smiling in a photograph. I obviously said to this in jest, and that's why I somewhat regret saying statements like this man in jest, because he's clearly a psychopath. I told a psychopath, made a joke about a psychopath not smiling on his own PR marketing website. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm still on this dude's list for sure.
Dude, let's get him on Riley Gaines. That's Riley Gaines' PR manager now.
Buffalo Jared, dude. I actually thought about when he first got arrested and murdered some folks. I thought about reaching out to him to see if I could be his PR rep. Maybe he needed some representation.
I'll be his attorney, court appointed.
All right, fair enough. Well, I appreciate your time, Landon. The Daily Dissident podcast. I highly recommend folks check that out. Some great conversations besides just the one with myself and Nick. The shows we've done over there. You've got some other solid conversations. I thoroughly enjoyed the Don Jeffrey show you did. So appreciate your conversation tonight. Do you have any closing comments or commentary for us?
Yeah, we're on the Daily Dissident wherever you guys get your podcast. I'm on them all. So yeah, check out the show and look forward to seeing some of you guys there and just having some fun with us. And thank you guys so much for having me on, man. It's been what 2 hours and 19 minutes on this show. So the longest podcast I've done. I was a little bit nervous coming in, but I think we did very good. So I'm happy with it, and I enjoyed talking to you guys. So
for sure,
absolutely.
Appreciate your time as well, sir. Great combo. Nick, appreciate your time as well, sir. Any closing statements?
I had a good time. Thank you very much. It was a good talk. Wanted to thank Hierophantus Maximus for the was a super chat earlier. I even did get something earlier from Tara. I didn't get to thank her for that. Thank you for that as well. I had a great talk, and not to do a selfish plug, but again, if you want to hear more about the Franklin scandal, go check out the Occult Rejects. It's about 3 years ago. It's on audio, definitely not on YouTube, maybe on Rumble and BitChute if you want to look that far back. And the same thing as well with the Loyal Order of the Moose, John Wayne Gacy, and John Norman, all that shit. Go check that out. And coming up next week, just to give a real quick plug on shows for people that are listening. Again, over the weekend for audio, we have Mormon Mafia Part 4 and the Anne Rice Vampire Cult. And then in video and audio next week, we got Coral Castle and Sumerian Deities. So keep an eye out for all of that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Appreciate your time. Appreciate the combo. And Mormon Mafia, I can attest to, and vampire stuff. Great shows.
Yeah.
The other ones, I'm sure, are also great shows. I just haven't heard them yet to provide any commentary. But those pictures that Robbie took, like I said, I'm familiar with Coral Castle, but I'm certainly fascinated. Those were some great pictures. I'm definitely going to check out the show.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
good show, guys.
Great Fridays and Operation GCD live coming up on Wednesday, 8 p.m. I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to lie to you folks at the interwebs. I have no fucking clue what it's going to be about, but will be what's ever on my mind. And it's lately these days, it seems to be Idaho Contra. My comparison of the Idaho 4 situation to the Idaho Contra or Iran Contra. Landon likes what I'm talking about. We just discussed a little bit of these details on his podcast here this past week.
So 8mm.
That's precisely what I'm talking about. But
we need to do
8mm.
We need to do an 8. Let's do an 8mm breakdown. Yes, let's do it. I'm down.
I like it.
Oh, yo, that movie is amazing. Yo, that movie. That movie fucked me up as a kid. No, I'm not gonna lie.
I have no doubt.
I did not know that stuff existed until that movie, and I was like, "Yo,
it's dark shit."
Dude, it fucked me up like a year ago. So, yeah, I'm 25. Yeah,
it fucked me up now if I watch it too slow.
That's what I'm saying, dude. It's dark shit. You got to prepare for that shit. But no, I like it. We'll definitely do that. But appreciate everyone, folks, the interwebs and the commentary and all. And JJ Vance, host of Operation GCD, not the vice president. And thanks again.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, well, check your six. Look in that garbage can, because you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.